2-1 started to show.
Officer still stands for time? No. Offender in custody? Anyone else close by this to result, let me know. First number. 10-4. Someone shot there. Alright, the ET doesn't take pictures of the, is it domestic related? She's calling back. We're going to try to give her a call again. And she just added another phone number to the 13-year-old grandson who's possibly with the daughter. Stand by with this.
2412.
Veteran crisis hotline's calling in. They have a female veteran's off her medication. She's at work to save David. Detective 12, check the check now.
2-1 started to show.
Officer still stands for time? No. Offender in custody? Anyone else close by this to result, let me know.
Yeah.
Muted CJ.
Oh my gosh, I'm sitting there talking the whole time. Oh my gosh. Yeah, I had some issues with StreamYard. They did something earlier, reset everything. But I want to say thank you all for hopping in. Appreciate you very much. And an extra thank you to the panel members. Thank you all for joining us. And a special shout out to Yoli. She wasn't able to make it tonight, but we miss her. So shout out to Yoli. Appreciate you very much. So thank you all for being here. Again, Commercial, Audrey, Nina. I know the program and Utterance as well. I know the program last week was kind of funky. We're doing StreamYard tonight. Typically unique. Hopefully you're doing okay with the snow out there. Holy crap.
A fire going.
Uh-huh.
Oh my lord. Yeah. I've been seeing it on the news. Are any of you guys by the northeast area up there getting hit by the snow? No.
No.
We have 60 inches.
Six?
Wow.
What?
60 inches.
What?
Six
Yeah.
zero?
I could say yes, but I don't think it's snowing. It's actually 35 degrees Celsius here.
Right.
So-
Yeah. Isn't it? It's summertime over there, right? Spring.
It's extremely summertime. I have the air conditioner going.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah. It's always opposite. So, what
In
time
fact,
is
the
it
other
for
day-
you?
It's 11:13 a.m. next week, Sunday next week.
Oh.
And this little guy, this is my connection to the internet. It exploded in the heat the other day,
Whoa.
so it actually overheated. I was like, why can't I get internet? And all of a sudden, I was like, I went down and touched this thing, and it was melting. It was legit
Oh
melting.
my gosh.
Yeah.
That's how you
So
get
that's
internet?
what happens around here.
What is
Well,
it
it's just a
satellite or-
connection. No, all it is just a USB-C to Ethernet because I've got a Mac.
Oh, okay.
That's all. But it was so warm. Like
Huh.
I had to go and get a different one, and then my internet was fine.
Wow.
So isn't that interesting how the two
Yeah.
hemispheres work?
Yeah, and plus the electronics, they never work as good as they used to, you know.
Now I'm thinking about joining Elon's new cult.
My audio sounds lower. Okay.
Yeah, you're
Hold
very
on
low.
1 second.
You have to talk louder like the rest of us, CJ.
Kathy, you're loud.
That's what my husband just told me. He said, tone it down a little bit. Okay.
All right. How about now? Is that better? Is that too loud?
Still a little low.
Is it really?
Mm-hmm.
Am I and CJ about the same, guys?
Oh, CJ's a little low.
No, you're louder.
I'm
You're
louder
clear.
than CJ. Okay.
Okay.
Hey, Kim, is Carlos with you? Is he going to pop in tonight?
Let me see
He might
here.
pop in, but he's at the casino.
Oh,
hey.
good for him.
Hey. Gosh, that sounds like fun. Shoot.
Yeah.
Out in 60 inches?
Well, we clear the roads. We've had a week, so the roads are clear now.
I sound distant. Oh my gosh. I've had nothing but audio issues today. Let me see.
Don't
Yeah, I can
stress
see
too much.
it is a distant. I can see it barely picking up on my.
Is there something not plugged in or not switched on?
Let me see.
I feel like my face looks green.
Microphone.
I did just see Wicked.
See a bunch of my friends turning up in chat. Hey, Scott,
Yeah.
hey, Sniffles.
Blue.
You're muted now, CJ.
Yeah. CJ, unmute yourself. There you go.
Yeah, it's like
So
not.
I could have left it going, but
A little better. That's better.
It's not letting me. There we go.
Yeah.
Is that? It's,
Better. Yeah.
No, it still shows lower for me. Okay. How about okay? There we go.
There you go.
That's
Yep.
probably too loud, isn't it?
No.
No.
no, you're good. This is good now.
Okay. I'll leave it.
Mhm.
I'll leave it right there. Let me know. I apologize.
No worries.
Yeah, nothing but audio issues. They like reset everything or something. And
That
I
was
had
perfect,
to like,
though.
yeah, I spent 3
Whatever you did
hours
worked.
today fixing.
Mhm.
All right. All right. So I wanted to ask you guys a question as we start off, and thank you all for being here. In the very beginning, when Idaho first happened, because we covered it the very first moment it took place. Very early on, and especially as we headed into the winter of 2022, December into January of 23, there was a lot of comparison between Ted Bundy and Brian Koberger.
Yeah.
After he got arrested, and then as the new year went on, even before there was, News Nation had discussions about how there was this comparison to the two crimes or whatever. And so Ted Bundy's lawyers have been making a lot of rounds recently, the last couple weeks. He's talking about a new memo that could threaten people's lives. But this was really interesting to me was that he described a fascinating parallel between Ted Bundy's last act and the charges against Brian Koberger that was fascinating to him.
Hmm.
Now, I've always I've kind of liked, Ted Bundy is a popular topic, and there's a lot of stuff done on him, even interviews and stuff that you can see on different programs of his own. Just when it comes to everything, and I don't know. I guess I want to ask each one of you, do you feel like there is a similarity, and why? Or if you don't, why you don't?
No, not at all. We live in Florida, so I vaguely remember when all of this happened, but Bundy's last victim was 12 years old. That's the one that got him on trial in Miami, although it happened in northern Florida. I could see with the sorority house, but I think it was more of a comparison with the Gainesville Ripper. The one who,
yeah.
Because of who got the boy and the girl that were living together. I failed to see. Now, I remember early on, CJ, also the comparisons that he was supposedly following BTK because his professor had written his autobiography, and you went to DeSales You know, I remember you're one of the few people that ever did that. I don't see a comparison with that at all. I think that's just a cheap way to get publicity.
A cheap way to get interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh,
Anybody
sorry,
else?
Kathy always says exactly what I'm thinking. This is just a way to get on TV. This is just a way to earn money. Follow the bucks. Like, honestly, what a load of malarkey. Please, to have any comparison between these two is just clearly this person, this attorney, is looking to get his face on. Was it what are the actual shows that he's been on? I bet it's Nancy Grace.
Well, I
Is
mean,
it?
yeah, I mean, it's newspapers and Fox News.
Yeah.
That I got that. Now he might have been on some other ones, probably. You know, different TV stations and stuff like that. I'm not.
It's just a talking point.
But it is. You guys are right. Like when it comes to the similarities, the Gainesville Ripper. You know that was one of the things that we first looked into in the very beginning, the first month or two. Actually, I think it was like the first month, because there was a couple weeks before the crime took place, there was talk about a special screening of the movie Scream.
Mm-hmm.
And you look at the weapon, you look at how they gained entry. You know what I'm saying? That there is more similarities with that than somebody that's going cross country. You know, at first, you know, I was at a I wasn't necessarily targeting sorority houses and stuff. I was at a beach. I pretended to need help, and then it was something like that. So there was a lot, like Ted Bundy, the crimes that he committed, not each one is the same. They're all, from beginning to end, they're all their own. It's not necessarily a pattern. It's about opportunity. You know, it's the situation that presents the opportunity, not necessarily the opportunity that's how you get there. With the Gainesville Ripper, I mean, the dude basically did the same thing over and over. He gained access, hid, used a K-bar and did certain things. So I would, with you guys bringing that up, I'm sitting here going, well, if any lawyer was going to bring attention to a similarity, wouldn't it be the Gainesville Ripper's lawyer and not Ted Bundy? But what about?
It wasn't a Gainesville Ripper's lawyer that was looking to get his head on TV. That's the thing.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, exactly.
You would think it would be the Gainesville Ripper's lawyer saying, "Hey, this is so similar, eerily similar." Instead of Bundy. But what about
someone who is impartial? Then I would be more interested in hearing from them. If it was someone who was making the comparison with an impartial point of view, then that would be like worth listening to. But because this person has a buy-in, and therefore there's a reason for this person to go on news shows and things, and potentially profit from his profile being brought back up again, and I was a lawyer for this person, so therefore I have this insight. It just seems a little bit opportunistic, that's all.
I mean, he looks pretty old. It doesn't, I mean, does he have a book coming out?
Yeah, see, that's
there you
next,
go.
I reckon.
Probably.
I mean, I'm just
follow the money.
It's because it's not like he's running out of. Does he even practice anymore? Is my question too.
Maybe he's got a YouTube channel.
I mean, you're talking Bundy was executed in 1991. This guy has got to be in retirement well into it. Maybe he doesn't have anything else to do, Hella. you know?
Exactly. And maybe this is just an ego thing as well. It could be that.
Yeah.
But there's- these people, like, you look at how much attention there is and likes and engagement that there could possibly be in having some connection to a current case like Brian Koberger, and
Mhm.
then also the name Ted Bundy, and he could look at it and go, well, here's my chance. Here's my chance to get on TV. Here's my chance to get some sort of buy-in. So, of course, like, can I find some way of talking this up? And we're in a 24-hour news cycle. The news stations are always looking for some way to get more likes and more views. So, sure, let's get him on. Why not?
You know, in another
Makes
area
sense.
where there's absolutely no connection between Koberger and Bundy is that Bundy was this very outgoing, popular person. He was going to law school. They had high political hopes for him. I went to, I don't know if you know who Anne Rule is, but she wrote The Stranger Beside Me. She knew him and actually worked at like yeah, his RAPE counseling set at like midnight with him, and he just had this two type of personality, this very public one where they were saying he might have even run for the governor of Washington State one day, versus Koberger, who seemed to be a lot more reserved in his life. You know, you're nodding, Helen. You know what I'm saying? I mean,
Yeah,
that was
absolutely.
Yeah, they were two totally different in the social world as well.
yeah.
Brian
Yeah,
was more of a
100%.
recluse, and Ted Bundy was a socialite. I
Yeah.
mean, he even had political aspirations, even worked for campaigns.
Hey, wasn't it also Bloom who made a comparison between these two?
Here,
Howard
Howard
Bloom.
Bloom. Well, yeah, he
Yeah.
talked a lot of crazy. I got, what is it, his book, and I was gonna do a read through because
Did
everybody's
you?
telling me I need to do one,
You
read a
paid for
book.
that?
Yeah.
I did because I did for the community because the community, needed to. I didn't want somebody else,
We covered the whole
I
book.
only did you? I
Yeah.
only made
Mhm.
it a short period, and I had enough. I couldn't do it. I'm like,
Fair.
I'm not gonna sit. I don't know how many pages was it. Community. I didn't go through much. I maybe an hour, 45 minutes, and I'm like, I'm not gonna sit here and
I just
repeat
can't bring
these.
myself to do it.
But that's me though. There might be somebody else
Fair.
that totally, because I've had, there's a lawyer friend that is a part of the show here and there, Andrew, and he's
Mhm.
totally about Howard Bloom and totally about the book. Yeah, I actually, and he makes a lot of great points too. Like I can see both sides. You know what I'm saying?
But how does he get into
But
Brian Koberger's head driving around the car? I would go where
I
I'm
or
going.
the dad conversation between the dad and Koberg. I don't know how you get
It's just
knowledge
because
of
it's
that.
narrative nonfiction. That's the
Yeah.
narrative part.
Oh,
Well, I mean,
true.
like no, I mean really when you're reading it, you're like, how it because I know Brian ain't talking to you and I know his dad ain't talking to you. So where
Right.
did you get the information from of the conversation that took place and what was going on in that car ride from Idaho, Washington State to Pennsylvania? Like,
Mhm.
so you have to take it with a grain of salt. At the same time, he was out there from the very beginning. He was talking to people. So for me, I have to look at it like this. Even though I don't necessarily agree with what he says, I can't knock what he says because I did the same thing myself. I went out to Idaho, Washington State,
Mhm.
talked to students, talked to community, was there for the vigil, all these different things. And so I was told a lot of stuff, and maybe that's where the difference was. He's out there looking like Mr. Magoo, and I'm dressed up like a college student, and everybody's talking to me like I just live in a dorm a couple blocks away or something.
But CJ,
Like,
you didn't write a book saying that this is what the parents of Brian Koberger were thinking when he was arrested.
Right.
No,
right?
I have not.
There's a difference.
Yeah, there is a huge difference.
Yeah.
And that's why people, you have to take it with a grain of salt, because you have to sit back and think, okay, number one, if this was my family member that this person was talking about. Number two, uh is common sense here, as much as we want to believe or feel a certain way, because there's a lot of opinions these days and everybody has a right to them, but at the same time you have to go off of what makes sense too. And if somebody's telling you that they know of a conversation taken between two people, and you know damn well neither one of them are saying anything to this individual, and those two people are the only two people that would have knowledge of the events and the conversation that took place, you have to take it with a grain of salt and be like, okay, now I see that I have to take these words and this reporting in another direction. Not that you discredit it, but because there's going to be little bits of truth in all of it if somebody's trying to make uh, a narrative or a story or to
Yeah.
sell a book.
Well, I do believe that he had some ins early on with the Moscow PD before everything got shut down, and he talked about some conversations he had with first responder Gunderson. I believe that happened, but the rest of it, I'm with, I don't know what Nina and Audrey think, but the rest of it I think was just a waste of time. Although I did like Typically Unique, you and your husband going back and forth. I watched you reporting on that book, and I would recommend to anyone to watch that series.
And I was
you.
kidding about, like, did you pay for it? Like, I get that a creator would pay for it in order to do a commentary on it. I would just recommend, generally, people don't buy it. If you don't want to,
You only
if you
bought
don't
one
want to support
copy.
nonsense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I did the same thing with President Green's book. Somebody from the community actually sent me a code for it, and that even though it was a puff piece for PR, boy, there's a lot of things you learned in that book, especially when it came to first response, like team of counselors that went out to all the fraternities and sororities before law enforcement even showed up at 1122 King Road. I mean, it was like, what? You actually admitted that? So it is, but yeah, it's I mean, gosh, how many people write a book these days, really? I mean, there's so many books out there too. You got to expect, even like President Green's book, how much of that really do you think is legit? It's all about image to these people. It's all about image. Just like, I'm sure Howard Bloom was talking to people, law enforcement that were out there. I mean, where do you think Banfield and all these other people were getting their information? Some of it came from Reddit, yes, but I guarantee some of it came from law enforcement too.
Yes.
The stuff that they were putting out, it was like you knew somebody had to have that knowledge to be able to, like in the current time, you didn't know if it was real or not, because it's like, yeah, this is News Nation or whatever, and you don't know if it's fact. But 2 years later, looking at everything that's been confirmed through court hearings and things like that, and seeing a lot of the stuff that is like, oh wow, this actually turned out to be this or whatever. They had to. It's an image thing out there, being important. What's up, Nina?
Hey, how are you doing?
Doing good. Do you think? What do you think about, like, Ted Bundy's lawyers came out and said a lot of interesting things recently about. Let me get the exact quote. Said a fascinating parallel. Now, Ted Bundy, and this is one thing, I'm surprised Ted Bundy's lawyer didn't come out in November and December and January of 22, 23, when there was a lot of the Ted Bundy talk when it comes to Idaho 4. I'm surprised he didn't come out back then and talk about the similarities and things like that, but he is now. I've never really been, I explored it in the very beginning about the Ted Bundy stuff. I never really saw it. I saw more like the Gainesville Ripper, something like that. What do you think about? Do you think Bundy?
The thing that I have to say about that is that I think it's in the week of November the 8th to November the 13th of 1974. Ted Bundy actually failed. Let's see, he failed twice, but he failed with 3 different people. And he finally ended up getting a victim, I think, on November the 13th. But the only parallel that I see too is if Koberger is the one that did this, then I can see where when Ted Bundy escaped, he asked his lawyer where could he go for the death penalty. And his lawyer told him that he could go to Texas or Florida, and he went to Florida and committed the murders. And then I can see if Koberger is the one that did it, you know, why drive 10 miles to a state that has the death penalty and no insanity plea when you're already in a state that has no death penalty and has an insanity plea. So I can see that relation. I can also see it to where if he is the one that did it, he's in a win-win situation. If he gets caught, then he gets his, I drove to the state for the death penalty and no insanity. But if he doesn't get caught, then he pokes his chest out and says, hey, I did it better than Bundy. I didn't get caught.
If he, wouldn't you think he would have kind of followed the same path as Bundy went?
If he turned out to be a serial killer, I do believe that he would have gone in the states that Bundy followed, that Bundy did. I don't think that it was necessarily wanting to be like Bundy. I think it was the study and everything that he did, the serial killer. I am so sorry. I think it's, you know, just the studies and, you know, his, I guess the word, sorry, y'all, my dog is, the admiration that he had, and I don't know if admiration would be the word, but for serial killers. You know.
So wouldn't he have tried to copy BTK then? If
Well, see, I don't think he was trying to copy anybody.
Or
I think he was trying to be better than them.
Yeah. I mean, who could be better than BTK?
Well,
right?
this is true.
The dude got away with it forever. And the only reason that he got caught was because he wasn't keeping up with technology. And he had such close access to the most, I guess, important information if somebody was going to be a sponge for that particular area. I see it. I would almost see him copying BTK because he has, you know, you can only get so much access from documents and photos and things like that. But when you have access to the teacher and the lady that totally like is in with him to where she gets birthday greetings from him, I could see him like being like, you know what, I would have so much access to have this knowledge beyond what I could get off of my own research, because this person actually knows on a personal level, knows all the tendencies and things like that.
You're talking about Kathleen Rosland, his professor, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, he's got her right there. And that's what, I mean, even BTK's daughter, Carrie Rollerson, who we follow on Twitter, she's got a great autobiography. I recommend it. She thought originally that maybe her father inspired Brian. I don't see it though. Nina, I agree with you. I don't, I don't see it.
I mean, I think the similarity is, with Washington State, of course.
Right.
But look at, you know, uh, with Ted Bundy, it was a lot of blunt objects when it came
Right.
to, to what he was using to these victims. It was tire irons and pieces of wood and, blunt objects. It wasn't necessarily a K-bar, and that's why I feel like the Gainesville Ripper is probably the closest that I could think of when it comes to what took place. Do you think Nina? Do you think he's kind of just trying to get his name out there, or do you really think he really feels like what he said? It's a fascinating parallel. Do you think he's
I think that, him coming out, gives him that recognition that maybe he hasn't had in so many years, maybe to
been a long time?
rekindle and be a part of something again. You know what I'm saying? I mean, because when you're part of Ted Bundy, I mean, back then that was one of the biggest ever. And so, to maybe put yourself in the middle of it, of this high profile, would maybe make you feel important again. I mean, he's what, 80 years old? I mean, I'm not saying anything about older people. I mean, I'm 56. So, I mean, but the thing about it is to make, to feel that it's been a long time since he felt that importance.
Yeah, because I feel like if the news organizations were reaching out to him, I feel like they would have reached out to him 2 years ago.
Yeah.
When they were really pushing the Ted Bundy stuff, because there for a few weeks it was nothing but Ted Bundy talk and the Coburg or Idaho 4 Coburg similarities. So was there supposed to be a court hearing today, or I know there was a new motion on 1211 that got
yeah. See that Christmas stocking behind Typically Unique. That's Judge Stephen Hippler's punch a hole in there. I had given him. I have to say, how I have to agree with you. I have to, just say that I'm very disappointed with Judge Hippler. I've given him some very high marks, but first he has this motion in front of him that the state of Idaho produces regarding adding additional attorneys general. They misread the statute. I agree wholeheartedly with the defense. And then he rushes in and he grants it without even giving them an opportunity for a response. So we're thinking that this is what this hearing is. But for him, I mean, they did this in Latah County over and over again. It's bad enough this Mount Everest of documents that are under seal, this gag order. But then they have these hearings that the public doesn't know about. And the only reason why the public knew about this hearing next week is because you had to search on the case summary sheet at the bottom of page 59 to note it. No notification regarding if it's public and no notification as to what motion it is, but it's scheduled for the 11th at 2:30.
What?
Yeah, and we have to guess what it's about, right? So
I didn't know that.
Yep. Yeah, I have to go looking.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think it's the Franks hearing?
It might be. No. That's what a couple of people are thinking, but most
to
people
be secretive like that.
Most people are thinking that it's the hearing that Hippler should have given before granting the AG's motion. And I did call out there because they have a telephone number, and I explained who I was, and I said, could you tell us two things? What is this motion? Is it open to the public? And the lady said, we have to put it in an email. So I did. This was late yesterday. If I get any information, I'll put it up on the community page, or I'll do an update on Monday. But I'm very disappointed with him. I thought he was going to be a little bit more open, than we've seen in this case.
I don't know why you thought that. Right from day one, he had an ex parte meeting and he closed that one off as well. So I know it had to be ex parte from the state, but there's no reason for it to be closed.
Right. That was about, you're right. Howard,
Yeah.
that was about how much money Ann Taylor was going to make. They had to go behind closed doors. Can the taxpayers go behind closed doors when the tax bill comes in to pay her, to pay the taxes on what this case is costing? No, that was ridiculous. They go behind closed doors for that. I
But
agree with you.
also about the mitigation expert timeline as well. So I mean, but yes, it didn't. The state shouldn't have been there, but there could have been some parts that were held back from the public. But why the whole thing? Why go behind closed doors for the entire thing?
Helen, 20 discovery requests of responses. Every single one is under seal. We had situations where our favorite, Judge John Judge, he made future rulings, as in, and I blame both of them. I blame the defense and I blame the state.
Well, defense has gone along with the whole. Well, okay, sorry to cut you off. Defense has gone along with it. As far as all the exhibits are concerned, sure, right? But Anne started fighting back in May this year when there was an argument on the table regarding the closed off hearings, right? So the state at that point wanted all of the pretrial hearings to be no camera. And she got up and said, no, you know what? The public needs to know what's happening here, because the public needs to start questioning, is Brian innocent? Because Brian is innocent. That was that day that she said Brian is innocent. And all right, so at that point, she was very adamant and she stood up against the growing secrecy that was starting to be pushed forth by the state at that point. State knew they were in trouble. State knew that they were starting to lose in those pretrial hearings, and it was very public. So
well, that's kind of funny, because if Ann Taylor got her way, there would be no cameras at all in the courtroom. It was Brian Koberger who wanted all cameras. Remember, CJ, when the people from the media were going in, looking closely, they were not following his instructions.
Yeah,
she said she didn't want a camera at all, and she also drafted the original non-dissemination order in January of 2020. Now that's a long time ago. There it is. But they're both entering into agreements that things need to be under seal. It's enough now. I mean, this is almost 2 years. What information do we have? Look at what happened in Manhattan this week. This guy is walking down the street. He's assassinated. Within hours, NYPD is releasing information. Nobody's even seen suspect vehicle 1.
And they had a press conference.
Press conferences.
They didn't wait 3 days.
Suspect vehicle 1 is one of the things that got Brian Koberger arrested.
Yeah.
Why are they putting out a bolo with 2 stand-ins? When that woman from Hawaii, when they were looking for her, did they publish a photograph of another 30-year-old woman with brown hair and say, well, we're not going to show you what she looks like, but she looks like this? That's exactly what they did with SV1, with the bolo. Remember, it was, one of the cars had a sunroof. We know what Brian Koberger's car looks like. I don't recall it having a sunroof. They have published nothing, no 911 call, no photograph of SV1, a photograph of him going in. Be a little bit transparent with something.
What's the reason they wouldn't be transparent? Like, judge. They go to the same Denny's on a Sunday. I can see the public pressure to go in a certain direction, but when you're talking about Boise, it's on the other side of the state of Idaho. It's a different world down there than it is up in northern Idaho. Why do you think they're not being transparent? What do you think the reason is then? Because I would think you think Moscow, you think reserved, you think Boise, you think progressive. There's a different approach, right? So if that's why I was asking in the last show, do you guys, because judges don't like to change the what other judges have already decided in a particular case, especially in this situation where they take over, they don't want to disrespect the other judge. And that's why I was asking, do you guys think that he's going to continue this kind of momentum that judge was doing? It kind of seems that way now, right? Why do
He
you
wouldn't
think?
care less. He does not care less about disrespecting Judge, tell you that.
So
But he also
what's
has zero balls.
zero balls? Whoa, okay.
Yeah.
Terrible.
You zero balls. Go and have a look at my stream the other day. I pulled this apart. I have gone through his actions up until now, and this man has far more bark than bite. He has been very clear with his actions so far that he is not going to set any precedents. He is not going to do anything that is likely to cause him to be the center of attention, right? So he likes to make it look like he has some sort of angry side. He likes to sort of posture a little bit and be like, "Oh, well, I'd like to say that I'm happy to be here, but who would tell an untruth, right?" So things like that, and he likes to scold and stuff. But when it comes to actually making a decision which could set some case law, he ain't gonna do it.
Oh
Well,
no, so there's another Floyd's gummy over there in Boise?
No. I mean, he could have very easily cut the defense off at their knees with this Franks hearing, because what the defense did was ridiculous in terms of filing that motion for the Franks versus Delaware hearing. 2,200 pages, repetitive information. That's not the judge's obligation to go in there and find your evidence. So he gave them 4 days to redo it. And then they went over on certain pages. They violated local rules. He could have said to them, "You know what? You're done." But he allowed them to come back. So that week, I gave him an A. But now he's got a big fat D for his latest performances, which is totally unacceptable, Judge Stephen Hippler, in my humble opinion.
So he went from, because I mean, initially when
0-0, CJ. Yes, he did.
the first hearing, I was like, damn. He was like, "Look, we're gonna do this. I don't want to hear this. I'm like, holy crap, this thing's gonna move quick. We're not waiting for decisions. The
He's
dude's
fine
coming
with
out
little
a decision.
decisions. He's okay with little decisions that don't make a huge impact on, like, people aren't going to go, "Oh my God, look what he just did. That changes everything." And it's going to affect other people's cases, right? But at this trial court level, he can make some decisions and they can look like he's made, like he's been a really fair judge or a really decisive judge, and that he's moving fast. But if it comes to actually doing something which is going to make a difference to other people's cases, so set case law for other people, he won't do that.
Most
Right.
judges won't, though.
That's
Yeah,
true.
well, he's had the opportunity already and he didn't. So
Well, I think this motion or this response, they didn't come out and say it, but they basically said, "Judge Hippler, you violated my client's due process privileges," right? Because the 14th Amendment says you need notice and opportunity to be heard in an impartial judiciary. And he was not given, even though she didn't come out and say it. That's what she was saying between the lines. You made this ruling without us even having an opportunity to make a response. You don't do that. AT said the same thing. Remember when they stopped the surveys in Latah County because who was it? Thompson ran and he said, "Oh, you got to put basically a restraining order," and he entered it and it stopped Dr. Edelman's surveys. And AT comes back and said, "You just violated my client's due process privileges because we didn't have an opportunity to be heard." And that was the one time the judge got upset. Usually he was pretty laid back. So I want to see if this hearing on the 11th is about this issue, how Hippler's going to respond, assuming it's public.
Yeah, and can I respond to Stern KB over there in the chat? Absolutely not. I do not want the judge to placate the defense. I want the judge to rule, right? So if the judge has in front of him a motion which has actual solid grounding to it, he actually said in his response when he was listening to both sides argue the motion to strike death penalty, the one which is talking about the choice between two constitutional rights.
Right.
He said, can you imagine this? If I were to rule on this, it would affect every other death penalty case. Well,
That's what you're supposed to do.
and then Ann Saylor said, well, that's what I'd like you to rule on. Right? So it would. Yes, it would affect every other death penalty case. That was his reasoning for saying no, because it would affect other people's death penalty cases. Is that a reason to say no? Or do you just hand it off to the next trial court? So let him be found guilty, let him be put on death row, and then let the next court level decide whether or not that's a robust argument. That's not
usually
a good
it's not
ruling.
But it's not, but usually that's what they do. That's
Yes, that is. It is
It- I-
usually what they do.
yeah,
And it was
they-
what the defense expected to happen.
yeah.
Don't get me wrong. The defense expected all of those motions to be denied. None of those motions did they expect to be sustained at the trial court level, because most judges don't have balls to do that.
No.
Right? But
Yeah.
people saying that he is this very fair judge, and also a judge that is likely to be very decisive and make stern rulings. Well, there was your chance. There was a few chances that day, actually, and he didn't flex his muscles at all. So I just think that he has what I would say a buck worse than his bite.
That episode you did, Hella, was excellent. I recommend
you.
everybody watch that, and not only just for this Koberger case, but actually breaking down kind of ways that these judges would make decisions and how it would affect other cases. Because what you were talking about, it applied, I believe, to all of the legal system, and how you broke that down. And I think it was very informational for anybody who wants to learn more about how that works, and maybe a little bit about how, why these judges would make decisions like that. It was so impactful for me, and I loved it. And with that same thing, we have information about the judge and the types of decisions that he would make. And I did want to throw it back to when we were talking about comparing Brian to Ted Bundy, because we're missing the key information that would tell us if this crime was like the other one. We need to see the injuries on the bodies. That is what is going to determine the personality of these two people. And I do think when you have these, I don't know if you've seen Dexter, but Dexter is a great example. He has his everyday personality, and then he has his dark passenger. And they are two completely different things. And when you are around someone like him, you may not even know. Because there was a friend of mine who, a school friend, and she was getting dropped off because she had visited a friend, and the dad, drove her home, and she was in the car with a SK. She had no idea until years later, when that person was in the news and there were multiple things going on there. And so these things that the media is connecting, like with the colleges, with Bundy, those are all very superficial things that aren't going to tell us what their other sides are like. And I know that these Bundy and the Green Ripper, they are serial offenders. And so the industry of being a criminologist, to break down these types of personalities and the foundation of how we do that now, so that we can see into what's happening with these people. We have that information because they're serial. This particular Brian Koberger case, or the crime in general, we don't have an additional crime scene to go off of. And so not only do we not have additional crime scenes to kind of figure out more about the individual, how this individual thinks and what kinds of things that he would do. And that is really what it boils down to, is we need to know the injuries. And I do know that, I think a lot of us here also know that in order for it to be an SK, it has to be 2 or 3 or more. And for a mass event, it's just the one with multiple victims. Now, with that said, I do follow, they're called criminologists, where they she used to be a professional one, and she was telling me that in the last, I don't know how many years, the standard was 3 victims to be considered, or 3 different events to be considered an SK. But she did say recently they moved it down to 2 separate events, which is very interesting. Why? And I think it's because we do have a wealth of knowledge because of these serial offenders, and that is how that industry works, so we can get into their minds. And so this is the last thing I'm going to say, just bring it all back, is we're never truly going to know if Brian is like Bundy or any of them unless we know the injuries.
Let me ask you this, Audrey.
Yeah.
All right, because we know from your favorite document, the affidavit of probable cause, page 2, Ethan's injuries were described. First off, they needed the medical examiner. This was the only one where Payne is not saying, looking what they were. Blunt force trauma, was it, versus sharp force? So a little bit of a difference there. I want to get your opinion on, does that give you any clue?
Yes, his injuries must have stood out, so much so that he was singled out when it was written down on paper.
So maybe, do you think the injuries were different? On, we've heard
Yeah.
from the G family saying, oh, the injuries don't match, but the girls, all 3 of them, we have what per Payne or whoever he got his information from, they had to go to the medical examiner to get Ethan's.
So for Ethan,
differently,
whatever injuries he had, they were unable to determine by looking at them. Officers could go and they could tell, I visually see this type of wound, I'm visually seeing this. Whatever happened to Ethan, the officers couldn't identify it at the scene.
Okay.
That's what I think. But I would never know for sure. And I don't really think we know the story of what happened there. So I know they put out there could be a target, and if there is one, it could have been Ethan. Whatever happened, there's something to Ethan, and I'm not really sure what that is, but I do think it was from the officer's visual observations at the scene.
Well, what about the Consalvis family saying that Kaylee's injuries were, they said it was like when they were reading the autopsy, it was like reading a horror movie script, and that her injuries were not the same compared to the other victims. So,
but did he say, I know exactly what, we're going back now, that her injuries didn't match Maddie's injuries, or her injuries didn't match because they would have had access, right? We think.
I don't know if they had access. Diane says that they would only know about Kaylee's. Is that true? So I'm just reading what Diane says in chat, and I know she knows a fair bit about this.
Well, I think they were the ones that were talking to all the families, because they were the ones that were on the mainstream media talking about how they don't, it's not that they don't support the other families, but the other families don't want to go as far as they want to go into being involved and to help and make sure that all this, the killer gets convicted and all this other stuff. So I'm assuming.
Sorry, I don't believe a word that Gonslavi says.
Oh, I'm not.
that can be an unpopular opinion, but
No,
yeah,
I'm
they.
just telling you what they stated, because when she's talking about Ethan
Mm,
and his injuries, I'm going off of I could only imagine that they were talking to everybody because they were the only ones on mainstream media talking to. And when they're talking about um, you know, what there's a lot of talk out there about how Kaylee wasn't even recognizable.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
but
So,
David makes a
my
really good point here. He's, we got some good comments in chat.
mm,
David Berg, KG being awake and cowering in a corner may have played. And I agree. If somebody's awake and they're fighting you, you have to hold them down. It's like with my kids. When my kids were younger, I had to exert more force. So maybe her injuries being different is because she was fighting back, and he or she or whoever it was that was real had to hit her harder than the others, or it could be again more anger. We don't know. Going back to what Audrey says, because so much of this case is behind this steel wall of secrecy.
well, when it comes to another case that I've been working on is Amber Burbilia.
Mm-hmm.
And this is where it kind of ties in with what Audrey was discussing about how the officer didn't know how the injury occurred, correct?
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
So in Amber Burbilia's case, the officer shows up to the crime scene, initially thinks that Amber Burbilia was shot in the head with a weapon, okay? But later determined during an autopsy, in fact, it was blunt force trauma, 2 strikes.
Wow.
So when an officer shows up thinking that it was from a gunshot to the head, and then it really is determined it was blunt force, that's why I'm saying I maybe not necessarily a target where I'm coming from. What I'm saying is maybe they couldn't determine it because when you look at the difference of injuries, you got Mabbitt saying sharp and blunt.
Mm-hmm.
So to me, when I'm thinking a blunt, I'm thinking a blunt from Amber Burbilia's case, how maybe they walked up and they're like, we don't know if he was shot or not, because when you think back to what the Consalvis family was saying before law officers even showed up to 1122, they were getting reports from friends and family that there was a shooting that took place.
Right. That's right. I forgot that.
And so that's where I'm coming from when it's like, okay, maybe they didn't know because it was a blunt injury. We've heard a lot of talk since the beginning about a golf club, right?
Mm-hmm.
What
yes,
could create that kind of injury to make it look like a gunshot? But then
Right.
people are like, well, it looked like it, but we didn't see an entrance hole that looked like a gunshot, so um
One other
I,
thing, CJ, if I could point out just a difference between, is that the only victim that we don't know where he was is Ethan. Remember, it was like Xana's on the floor, the girls upstairs are in the bed, Ethan is also in the room. So it's sort of like they treated him a little bit differently in a couple of different ways. Now, I don't know if that's just Payne being his ambiguous self, because a lot of what he wrote in the PCA doesn't make a lot of sense, or if there was truly something different about him, going back to what Hella's saying. Maybe he was the
mm,
target, maybe he wasn't the target, but he was treated differently at least 2
well,
ways.
yeah, because he was the only male that was in that household. Of course he's going to be treated differently. Because if I'm walking in that house to commit a crime, he's my biggest threat.
Absolutely.
Especially with how tall and big Ethan was compared to everybody else. Regardless of sex, he's your biggest threat because he can reach you before you can reach him. Not necessarily the case with the other victims. You could keep them at bay or at a certain distance, but with him, he could be grabbing you and you could be doing this trying to even touch him, and it's. It's not happening. And so I could, maybe he was. I mean,
Yeah.
you think about the fight that took place at the frat house before. I mean, I always thought, suspicious things don't just play out,
Right.
Oh, I
there's
completely agree. I'm not sure if he's a target. I just mentioned that as being an option, but what you're saying, CJ, right on. There's something that happened there that was definitely just different.
suspicious.
I
Yeah.
don't know if it's better or worse. I don't know, like the Goncalveses were saying, but you're right, CJ. There's something different about it, but I have no idea what that would be.
I mean, because I thought it like he with the fight that took place, you heard the stuff that was going, what we don't know for sure, but there's a lot of the streets talk, and they know what happens, and
Mhm.
sometimes the streets, the talk gets out into the masses, and yeah, somebody could definitely have an angle at him. Jealousy, we know it was a crime of passion. There's jealousy that was involved, so yeah, there's jealousy there, there's jealousy in the other direction. And then when it comes to law enforcement not necessarily putting out the whereabouts
Mm.
of them too after all that took place, that's another interesting thing. I always, from just a few weeks after the crime took place, I always felt that the Moose Lodge call had something to do with the events that took place that night too.
Right. And here's a funny connection. Who responded to the Moose Lodge call? A certain Nate Rosendahl,
No
seen
report.
later, right, at Banfield, running around Banfield with his x-ray. We talked about this before, his x-ray hearing, and he could see way over from the boys' frat house that there's a boom box at 1122, and he steps away, at about the time the crimes are either happening, if you believe as I do that they happened earlier than 4, and he doesn't see or hear anything. It's just that whole Banfield situation. It's just, I don't know. I don't know what you guys think, but it's just.
Well, Rosendahl, he is odd because he's the common denominator. He's in everything that we know. He's in that outside the Moose Lodge. He's in one of the noise complaints. He's outside Banfield, and then he's at the scene the next day. I don't know what that means, but I think that's odd. He's in everyone. There's multiple people at that police department, and we've seen a handful of them in the different noise complaints and the other things that were released.
Yeah. Somebody made a really good comment before. Maybe the order of the crimes are what we've seen, like in the complaint that Thompson filed on the 29th. It went Maddie, Kaylee, Xana, Ethan, and then also when he was read, when he came back from Pennsylvania at the first hearing, Judge Marshall read it in that order. So what do you guys think? I mean, there's a lot of me that wants to say that that's the order of the crimes. Why would Madison be first, Kaylee second, Xana third, and then finally Ethan, if that's not the order of what law enforcement believed the crimes occurred?
That's interesting that he's last.
If he's seen leaving the house, if that's accurate, out the sliding door, it seems like he was coming from Xana's room.
Agreed. Yeah. Agreed with you on that.
Then you have SG saying he didn't have to go upstairs. So then that makes it seem like they were first. But that's if you give that credence, him saying that.
How do we not know this stuff? It's 2 years later.
I know, Helen. We're having
not even the 911 call.
The same conversation we had in February of 2023. It is almost 2 years since Brian Kohberger was arrested. We're having the same exact conversations. Oh, there's a ton of information. I mean, this is in my own family. My son believes that he's guilty. My husband won't say a word. He wants to see the evidence. My sister says he's a scapegoat. It's like the division, and I blame that gag order for this.
Yeah, because of no information. It allows all of these different theories and possibilities that, I remember doing shows a year and a half ago, like just getting fed up with all the different theories, like
We were
it's
having
like,
the
come
same
on.
conversation then, CJ,
No,
about
back
like
there was no court hearings back then, so it was, back then it was like we could sit here and talk about the sun being blue tomorrow and how that could be possible, and like all these different and it's like, come on people, like let's stick to the information that's there, because and that's the problem when it comes to the gag orders and stuff like that. Like, it creates so much room for there to
it's
be
true.
so many different possibilities.
I don't
And that's
understand
why
why there has to be a gag order. I compare this case to the Long Island SK case all the time, because when they were on Rex Heuermann, they were very transparent with everything. Here's the guy. Here's how we got him. Here's the evidence we have. Here
Right.
are the victims.
that's
Like,
because
there
they've
was
got
no,
something on
here's
him.
what we got out of his house. There was no secrecy. If this is your guy, then tell us this
Yep.
is your guy.
And the
Because they
investigation
have
kept
something
going
on
too.
him. Yes,
Yeah.
it's because they actually have a wealth of evidence that they're willing to give out, and they don't really have anything to hide, right? So when people have something to hide, they hide, right? The problem is that in this instance, they had so little to go on, and it was so unconfirmed. Everything that they had was unconfirmed. Yeah, it was all just speculative at the time.
Mhm.
So they kept it under seal, and they've continued to keep it under seal because you know what? If there was some bombshell evidence, we would know about it.
I
Right, it would have
agree.
been leaked.
Totally.
Right,
Oh yeah,
I asked
long
Andrea
time ago.
Burkhardt about this when she came on my channel 10 days ago, 2 weeks ago. I said to her, I went, Andrea, if there is some bombshell evidence of Brian Koberger being guilty, like some like DNA all over the place in his car, wouldn't
Pictures
we
of him
have
going in
some
and out.
idea of it by now? Right?
Yeah.
Like, wouldn't we know by now? And she's like, oh, for sure.
Yeah,
Right?
because
Like,
think of Linda Lane.
they'd be showing their hand, because they wouldn't be sitting around like dickheads,
No.
looking like they are right now, like their case is falling apart in front of the public, even with
Oh,
their gag order in place.
Well, we
Right?
know
Because
that. We know that they don't have a photo of his license tag. And CJ, when you went out and did your excellent research of recreating that route, you said that there was something like 250
That's
cameras, right?
that's a generous lowball.
Low ball. So not one, and Payne does say, he says this car did not have a front license plate. And he made a phone call to Pennsylvania, one of the 10 states that do not have license plates, including nearby Arizona, in the front. So he wouldn't have made that statement if they had a partial, or if they had a full vision of the tag in the back. So we don't even know what suspect vehicle one is. It could be a red bicycle for all we know at this point. Because the one thing, CJ, that I just cannot, the panel, I can't wrap my mind around is why has the public not seen a single image of suspect vehicle one 2 years later, over 2 years since these crimes happened? People think we haven't, not an official photo.
Right.
No.
My biggest question is when a grand jury, because if it's if you can convict a ham sandwich, when a grand jury that would would do that, why, if they're asking for more evidence, I don't understand. Usually when you bring something to a grand jury, and if it's that easy, they usually don't ask you for more, because if they did, then it wouldn't be
Yes.
as easy as
Correct.
as a ham sandwich, right?
Well, they indicted pretty quickly. They met for less than 3 days. Friday the 15th, Monday the whatever it was, the 17th, the 18th, the indictment signed.
Well, that's what
Quick.
that's what the University of Idaho did when they were trying to buy the University of Phoenix online.
Mm.
They did it all behind closed doors until a day and a half before the vote needed to take place. They took half the day to try and get everybody to try and meet on the last day, and then hurried up and had to make a vote on it when they didn't even know, and all they were told is trust us, it's going to make a lot of money. That's what they do up there. Like that's how they do things.
But I know when they went into that grand jury, they were like, because it's only the prosecution, so they're going to go in and say, we have a car, we have his DNA, and as soon as they say we have his DNA, all
That's
the
it.
grand jury
That's
has to do is say, yep, you have enough to take him to court, and all they're thinking is, well, we're not saying he's guilty, we're just saying you have enough to go to court,
Right.
and so
To
yeah,
indict.
that's why they're going to say
Yes.
yeah.
And so when they say that they need more, that right there, that's
Yeah.
my biggest
That's
question
where, yeah.
for the whole kit and caboodle is what they need and why weren't they given it?
Now,
Why didn't-
CJ, you know that I came into this just this year, so you know I had a lot of catching up to do.
Yeah,
But-
almost a year ago, Nina, right?
I know.
Wow.
Damn, that's right. Yeah. Yeah, because I
Yeah,
told her in the beginning, I was like, you need to make your own channel. You're getting too much information.
Yeah, I love my research. I love my research. But my question is the statement of they need more. Where did that come from?
That was our good friend, what's his name? The male defense attorney. He basically said that in
Jay
open.
Logston.
Shannon.
Jay.
Jay.
He dropped it.
Jay.
And- yeah, and Judge, like, we probably shouldn't say that. I was like, well, thank you very much, Jay, for saying that. It's absolutely.
Ah.
Okay, so it's confirmed then.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not
Oh, Logsden.
okay. That's what I was
Jay
asking
Logston.
because I didn't know, if it came from a parent or somebody had said it or because I don't know a lot of things that have been debunked and stuff like that. You can ask CJ. I was all the time sending him stuff, and he was like, "Oh yeah, that's old news."
No, come on. Yeah, some of it, but damn, I was like that's when you were sending all that. I'm like, you need to make your own channel because like it was crazy the amount of work that you were doing.
And as far as Boise, in my opinion, I'm gonna be honest. I think it getting sent to Boise could be a bad thing for the defense, only because that's where the Board of Regents and people like that are. And I think that if you put the people up against in Boise, as far as their commitment and stuff to like the college and stuff like that, even though it's Boise, like I said, the Board of Regents and people like that, the higher up people are located in Boise. So I think that it could work out to a disadvantage. And I'm not saying in any kind of way that it'd be fixed or anything like that, but but I think it could work out for a disadvantage to the defense with it being there.
Well, Helen and I, just in responding to that, Helen and I are on the same page that if this thing goes to trial, he's probably going to get convicted. He's
He will be
screwed.
convicted.
I mean, he's
Yeah.
got to win on these, either the Franks or something to get this evidence. If maybe, he grows a couple, Hella, and he does suppress, if there's enough there to suppress the sheath. Now if that's the only DNA, maybe.
If he's
But I think he's got an 85% chance of being convicted.
His only chance is to prove he could not have possibly been there at that time. And I know they say it's not his job to prove that, but if to be found not guilty, his lawyer's going to have to do that.
Well, here's the thing,
here's
right?
my sorry, I have a question. We know, the touch DNA and stuff like that, but we know that there's up to 5 different DNA profiles that could probably be mixed all together, right? And I know I watched an interview with Cece Moore, and she made the statement that it could take months to separate that many DNA profiles. So how do we know that those DNA profiles have not been separated out, but that they got separated out after the gag order to where it couldn't be talked about?
That could be true because Stephen Mercer, who was giving the DNA testimony at the DNA hearing, he said it's very important that they get all the testing for that because there could be anomalies or low mixtures, the
Right.
mixtures that could be hard to see. So yeah, he didn't know by looking at it, and I know he's not a scientist, but I think he's been doing this so long, he can see that kind of thing. And he obviously knew it was environmental trace DNA, and there wasn't enough information there for him to say, is there any mixtures? We don't even know.
Right. Because I mean, if we all know, well, I'm not arrogant enough to say I can sit in Alabama and solve this case, okay? But we all pretty much know from watching IDTV that most of the time you cut your hand when you're using a sharp edge,
Oh, 100%.
And
Absolutely.
so, if that's the case, then, the separation of the DNAs could have happened after the gag order.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, and that's where I think a lot of the discovery requests were coming from, is because they were waiting on a lot of stuff to come. It's why I always say they just went after the tip, because I feel like they were waiting for a lot of stuff to come, and a lot of it was the DNA. I believe they just they kind of went with that tip, and then as time went on, that he even said, Bill Thompson even said, like, multiple court hearings, I can ask again, I can keep asking, while the defense is like, we don't even have the photo, we don't even have the video clip, we don't even see the connection on the cell phones, like, we're missing all these key pieces. Go ahead.
What we do know, what we at 100% do know, and we can cite to the John Judge, October, 9th, 2020, when he finally ruled on the motion to compel. First line, FBI told Moscow Police Department, look at Brian Kohberger. We just don't know when that happened. Does anybody have any further information? I mean, because that's direct. I think it's even the first line of that order, because they were doing something with the DNA. I think that it went what? It went from ISP lab to what are they called in Texas? Audrey?
Yeah, I just did a video on that, and from what I understood was that the ISP got it, and then it was sent out to a third party to do the S&P, because there's not any kind of law office, LE or anybody that has the ability to make an S&P, so it has to go out to a third party. And it went out to Othram or whatever, and they made the S&P and put it in their, the results and everything in the portal. And instead of Othram doing like the family tree, it got sent back to the FBI.
Right,
They actually took it. The FBI took it in the middle of Orthram's process. The FBI took it. They didn't even let him finish.
Right, but see, from what I understand, the FBI has their own genealogical lab. I don't like calling it a lab because they're not messing with the blood or anything, but they have the ability to build their own trees. And so the way I understand it is, and I watched so many CC Moore interviews, but the way that she explained it was that the FBI is only allowed to look into the portals as far as what the S&P shows and everything. And then they have to do all the legwork of, the death certificates, marriage certificates, all the public availability. But that they do not mess with any of the sample or anything like that, that they only go through a portal. And that one, according to the DOJ interim, once somebody is arrested for it, they have to take the S&P out of the system. And once that S&P is taken out of the system, they can't go back and look at it unless they upload another S&P.
Well, I know that the FBI has let people that have committed crimes before go because they didn't want to release their technology
Right.
that they use. So I don't see, when it comes to, like you say, you watch CC Moore a lot, right?
Yes.
CC Moore talks a lot about the homework, right?
Yes.
The process, the test, and the multiple times that you got to run these tests just to get to where you're trying to get to build a profile. You need a whole bunch of homework to be able to get to an end result, and there's no other way you can do it without the homework. I don't see, if somebody is going, if it really is about the justice for the victims, why you don't save your homework, because that is justice for the victims.
Right.
But they turned over their notes. They turned over the family tree. When the judge looked at everything in camera, they turned over to the defense. They turned over the family tree, all of the note taking they took and everything like that. The only thing they could not turn over was what they saw in the portals. And so, I guess that's my way, when he says I can't turn over what I don't have,
Right.
They didn't have it.
They have to show how they get to that family tree, though. Like, are they?
That's why I'm bringing up.
That's what he's talking about.
That's why
I'm genetic connection, right?
That's why I'm bringing up the fact that they use technology. That's why Bill Thompson in the very beginning referred to the court case where somebody got off because they were saying, you're saying that my client has ties, DNA, da 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 da. Show us the work. And they said, we can't show you the work. And they said, why can't you show us the work? Because we don't have access to the work. Because in that court case, they were saying the FBI has the homework because they're using technology that they don't want out there. And Bill Thompson even referred to it in the very beginning of the court hearings about that case. And that's what I'm saying. Like, that's probably why I'm sitting here, like, when it comes to, we need to arrest him. We got the tip. The FBI gets the tip. Hey, it's Kohberger. All right, we're going to go arrest him. We're going to wait for the homework to come. And as it kept coming, because of the dilution of the sample, they maybe couldn't get the actual homework that they could use in the courts. And so it was one of these things where it's like, I can keep asking. Who did he have to keep asking for? Here, Orthram already gave him everything that they could give him in the beginning. ISP already gave him everything that they could give. There's no reason that they would have held anything from the prosecution or the court system. Who would? The FBI. Why was there so many discovery requests? Because the FBI was not handing over the stuff that the prosecution was waiting for it to materialize, so then they could present that. And when it comes to even like what CC Moore says about how they even got the profile of Kohberger, that it's not science, it's an art, because you're manipulating DNA to come up with a profile.
No.
She said it.
But that's where I kept going wrong too. Is I kept thinking, so they just keep taking this sample of this DNA and doing whatever they want to the DNA until they get what they want. Well, the IgG, the profile, the sample. And so finally I realized that, the DNA is more like the bodily fluids and stuff like that, but the IgG is more like putting the puzzle together with analysis. And so the S&P, they make one S&P. They don't keep digging into that S&P until they get what they want. What she was saying was putting the puzzle together as far as analysis. Now, I think what was happening was they were doing parallel construction, and Moscow PD was working on their end. FBI was working on IGG, and maybe they converged simultaneously.
I think they let FBI take over everything.
Hmm.
ISP and FBI take over everything. I think they, from the very beginning, before Lanier even got out of his car, he determined that ISP and other agencies were going to handle it all.
Yeah, he saw right away that he was
Before he got out of his car.
Way over his head.
Yeah. And so what I'm saying about what CeCe Moore was talking about is she's the leader in it, right? She's the leader in this. And when she was it was on the Presumption podcast, and she was even saying it's not a science. You can't convict anybody off of this. This is an art. And
I mean, it's not admissible in court or anything.
The art part, the art form of it is taking that genealogy piece and identifying somebody in a database, right?
Yes,
that's where she's going to go to. She's going to go to a database, and she's going to find like an 18th cousin or something that shares some portion of that. And then she's going to use her detective genealogy skills to trace up that tree or however they do it, to make those connections until they can, through all the other art form of documents and death certificates, identifying a male, if it's a male suspect, in that family, in that area at that time.
Well, if I'm not mistaken, there's still another motion to compel that's never been entertained concerning this information from the FBI that the defense still has floating out there. It'll be curious to see on the 23rd of January if that's one of the motions that will be entertained by Hitler. I mean, could you imagine if that chief gets thrown out? Then I think he has a possibility at trial. But that chief, I think any jury hears, oh, it's his DNA. It doesn't matter if it's touch, whatever. They're going to convict him. I truly believe they will.
I agree
this
with
case
you.
is going to win or be lost with these pre-trial motions. This, I really think he should receive, just based on that PCA, the hearing that he's seeking, the Franks hearing. And let's see what Hitler does with these motions to compel, how strong they are, motions to suppress. And, but before you know it, trial is going to be here. July 30th is when they're picking juries. So that's another thing. What's the secrecy behind this jury selection? That, we're going to do it, that we're not going to tell you when it's going to be, it's like we can already see this trial is probably going to look a lot like what we just saw with Delphi. It might be behind closed doors, no cameras. They
had that locked down.
Yeah.
I don't think
so.
so.
I have a question. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I don't think there's going to be no cameras. I think there'll be cameras like we have currently.
I hope.
But just regarding the motions to suppress, if you're right, Kathy, and the IGG, if the IGG motion to suppress is successful, that actually knocks out a lot of the exhibits, because the IGG motion to suppress affects almost all of them. So that is 0.5, I think, in pretty much all of those motions to suppress, because it's a domino effect. If that is unlawful, that's fruit of the poisonous tree is the first thing that identified him, and if they didn't identify him based on that IGG search, then they wouldn't have the Amazon results. They wouldn't have the search of the car. They wouldn't have the search of the apartment. All these other things that potentially create exhibits that will come in at trial, all based off the IGG search. So if that gets suppressed, we are looking at a motion to dismiss from the defense, and I don't see how judge has any option but to sustain that dismissal. So
you're thinking this case is basically going to turn on whether or not defense is successful with the motion to suppress the sheath?
IGG.
Hello?
Yeah,
IGG. Okay.
yeah, 100%,
What do you
100%.
guys think? CJ, Kim, Audrey.
I think
what do you
I think the DNA would be easily argued in court. You can already see in the court hearings with the testifying of all these different individuals about the DNA already. You could basically see what the juror's going to see, but minus the graphs and the charts and all that other stuff. Um, I don't know. I think the cell phone is what.
No, but see, that cell phone, you would not get to the cell phone if it weren't for the fact that the search warrant for the IGG, so finding him in the first
Right.
place,
Oh yeah,
happened, right?
but
Yeah.
they're not gonna. That's what they're banking on is the IGG. They're not banking on the cell phone. They don't
Oh,
even
they're
care
banking
about
on
the
the
sheet.
cell phone if we get to that point,
Yeah, but
right?
what I'm saying
So,
is
yeah.
from initially before the cell phone, they were banking on the IGG from the very
Yeah.
beginning.
So,
The whole time throughout this course, have they not been banking on the IGG?
oh,
Yeah.
look, here's the thing, right?
I mean, that's what,
It's a matter of the IGG should stop everything from going to court. However, the cell phone data or the cast report, more broadly, is what actually exonerates him, right? So that's
yeah,
the reason why Eliza and
yeah,
Anne have gotten up in open court and gone, he's innocent, right? That's what's actually convinced them, I believe, of his true innocence, because Cyray's come along and shown them
yeah,
some data that's proven that that
yeah,
phone was 40 miles to the west. And it was around that time that they got up in open court and said so.
yeah.
Right now, that's a big, big deal for them to put
That's
their
why I'm
reputations on the
saying
line.
that's why I'm
Yeah.
saying the cell phone is going to be the most important in the court, not the IGG. The IGG is going to be there because that's what the prosecution has been banking on from day one. So it's going to be in there. Okay.
Right,
But,
CJ. CJ,
but
I
it
agree with you.
but it's going to be easily argued because we already saw the arguments taking place in the court hearings already. I've known since November of 23 that the cell phone was going to exonerate him if he really didn't do it, because that's when I learned that I could connect my cell phone in Washington State to 1122's tower. So I knew that moment all the way back then that the cell phone was going to be the hugest, because when it came out that he was driving on that road, according to his timeline, that's the same road that T-Mobile showed me the tower that 1122 hits on, that I could still be in that area, came up on it on accident at the cell phone store. And when it comes to the route that you're leaving, you definitely can hit that road and exit. Not only you can show up on Stadium in Nevada, you can show up where you might shut your phone off there, and with that same route of you being caught on the highway going to Moscow, you literally, right after you get on where he was spotted, you turn right going south, and you're heading on that exact same road that you would connect to the same tower of 1122. And so I feel like, yeah, they're gonna, if the state, I mean, that's, if the state can't get the IGG, I mean, come on.
I don't think the
It's not
state-
happening, but they're gonna. The judge is gonna allow it. It's gonna get argued, and the cell phone is gonna be the most important when it comes to.
Why do you think they're gonna? Why do you
Because
think
that's
this
what the
judge
case
is gonna
is.
allow it?
Because look at what he's doing already. Does
Well, I
everybody
mean-
up here? Does anybody up here on panel? I mean, listen to you guys of what you've been saying about the judge tonight. Do any of you think he's not going to allow the IGG?
It depends what the evidence is. He's not going to do anything that could be easily reversed. The only thing on his appellate record in a criminal case that's ever been reversed is, guess what? A motion to suppress.
Okay.
Do you think he wants
But
to?
what I'm asking, I mean, do you think that he's going to allow the IGG? You yourself?
I don't know, because I don't know what the
Do you
argument
think?
is.
But do you
I
think
think
not
if
what
the
you
evidence is strong enough, if I don't know what is in uh, the suppressed articles, right? So I don't know the full
nobody does
information
though.
because it's in the gag order, right? So
Nobody
I
does.
can't know how good how compelling all that is. However, if it is compelling, if it is unlawfully obtained, he has no
Based
choice.
No,
He's,
He has no
he's
choice.
this is because nobody has, listen, nobody has that access that you speak of. So
Exactly.
to say that that's a different comparison, that we all have the same comparison because we all
Yeah.
have the same access to the
That's what I mean.
information. What I'm saying is based off of what you're seeing right now in these court hearings, what's been taking place for the last 2 years, and what you can maybe see coming up.
Yeah.
Any of you, do you think that the IGG is going to be allowed? I do. I'd
I
like
think
to hear each. I mean, because that's what the prosecution has been banking on the whole time.
I
If
think
it's
the
that
IGG
simple,
will
yeah.
stay.
Isn't the PCA written based on the cell phone data, right? Tracking him and his
All of
car.
it.
Isn't that
All
what
of
the
it.
PCA,
It's
right? So I
the
think what they're saying is
video.
they're going to throw out the PC, like, and all the warrants are written on that probable cause. So that's the fruit of the poisonous tree, right? Like
Right. Right.
everything that comes after that, including the IGG.
Right.
But there's
So I
not
think
any fruit of the poisonous tree because right now, as of this moment, there are no laws dictating what can happen with the IGG except for in Montana, Montana, Maryland, and Utah. They're the only ones that have laws in place that say what you can and can't do with the IGG. The guy, is it the Golden State? You know, when they put his when they did his family tree, the law enforcement did not tell it was for a murder case. They did not tell they were law enforcement. They went in under incognito, and it still didn't get thrown out because there were no laws in place monitoring what could be done with the IGG and how the FBI could do it.
so.
Can I
That
make
could
a
be
point,
the only
please?
piece of evidence that they could keep because everything else would then get thrown out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Could I make a point, please? Because I think I've been misunderstood a little bit. Earlier, when I said that I think he has no balls, I think people misunderstood, some people maybe in chat perhaps misunderstood, and in the respect that maybe I came across that I think that he has no balls and he's going to just support the state. No, that's not what I meant at all. I meant that he has no balls to do something that is going to be controversial. He could.
Now, see, I totally understood that.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks. Because he could go with the defense as long as it's the correct thing to do and it's not going to cause any drama, right? So
especially that you're coming with the research that he was reversed. The only time he was reversed was on a motion to suppress. Well, right then and there, right? Is anyone here does not believe that he sees himself one day being on the Idaho Supreme Court? Because that's what I think.
Absolutely.
In his mind, he wants to be. He's not going to want to get reversed. That will hurt his chances. It will embarrass him. It will make him seem like they need a rock solid motion to suppress. I think there's a possibility he might throw it out, CJ, based on that. Only because I think he doesn't want to get reversed again.
He doesn't want to get reversed. Not a motion to suppress or anything, really. He really doesn't want to get reversed.
I haven't heard that before. Thank you.
How recent?
The motion to suppress, I would have to look it up, but Andrea wrote it in the very first article that she wrote as soon as the first hearing happened. She did some research into HIPLA and presented it and sent it out to her subscribers. So I included that in my last stream. So that was on September 30. And because he actually focused mainly on civil, to mainly malpractice, healthcare kind of judgments.
Right.
Yeah. So he has been doing criminal cases, but not death penalty. This is apparently his first death penalty.
And what a case that, with the entire world looking at him. This isn't,
Yep.
small
saying.
case. Here.
That's why I would see him allowing it in, because he's not a DNA expert. You know, and not that he needs to be in order to make the decision, but what I'm saying is you're not trying to ruffle water and make this huge splash. And I don't know. I see him allowing it and letting the prosecution, try and prove their case when it comes to if it's relevant or not. I would see him not allowing it being more of a spectacle, because
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
think about just on YouTube alone, before mainstream media, what's more of a spectacle, that the judge allowed the IGG or that he tossed it out? I mean,
See, here's the thing. I don't think this judge cares about YouTube. I think he
I'm
cares
not
about his
saying he
bosses.
does. That's what I'm saying. And public opinion not optics for bosses? It is.
Yes, but being reversed is far worse for his career.
Yeah. What I'm saying over here, a lot of people care about, when it comes to bosses, maybe judge don't, and I'm not saying he does, but I know his bosses care about what public opinion is, because that's how they're voted. You see what I'm saying? It's all public opinion.
Mhm.
And so if there's a whole bunch of public opinion coming out after this humongous, because I mean, think about it, it would be the talk for years if he didn't allow it. They would, and especially if BK would be let off. Oh,
Okay, so if we base every decision he's going to make based on what people are going to say about him,
I'm not
then
saying that about him. You're misunderstanding what I'm saying. It doesn't he can decide whatever he wants to. Okay. There's public opinion that creates a lot of influence with people of a certain stature. Okay. They will lessen what they believe in because of the public opinion. And when it comes to, I mean, just think about the cancel culture. How many people have been canceled just based off of public opinion, and then all of a sudden they go to trial? Like Johnny Depp, for example. Public opinion convicted the dude. He was this, he was that, and he fought for a couple years in court system. And was Disney not his boss? Were all these other movie studios not his bosses? And what they do, they kicked him to the curb. Public opinion. You could know the person, you could trust the person, you could want to do it off of what your heart or what you know is right. But public opinion, when it comes to these people of that stature, that does base their decisions. So I'm not saying about judge is going to make a decision based off of public opinion, but did you not just say that the judge was going to make a decision based off of his higher up's opinion? Yes, their opinion is public opinion, is what I'm trying to say.
Well, let me ask you this, CJ. Can I
the
ask you a
Supreme Court's
question?
opinion is public opinion. Really?
Let me ask you this, CJ. Of the two, if we imagine we're back in laptop, do you think that there is even like a tiny chance better of Judge throwing out that IGG or Hitler doing it?
Well, Hitler, I would believe.
Yeah, Hitler.
Judge just seems like he was just rolling along trying to, act like he wanted deadlines, but really
He ate too many gummies.
it was just that I really feel like they probably wouldn't have even been able to meet when they were going to go to trial. Like I really feel like there would have been so many, okay, this is the deadline, and then the deadline comes and then it just gets extended again, and it was just a pushover, really. But I think I think I think there was a lot of pressure where he didn't want to make the right decision or the wrong decision, and he didn't want to get overturned as well. None of these judges want to get overturned. None of them do.
The difference
The,
I see between the two, I think that Hitler has a larger ego, but you're seeing judges in this tiny community. He's seeing these people every day. They all work, most of them work either university or they work for Moscow PD or they know someone. I mean, he is right in the middle of everything. And plus, didn't he just announce his retirement? Hitler is another type of an animal. I really believe that he has high hopes for himself, that he wants to move on. So and I could see what you're saying too, CJ, that the more conservative move would be to just let it in and let
let
Thompson
the prosecution
let
prove
them,
it.
let them confuse the jury, because it's going to confuse the hell out of the jury. That's the issue.
I've got. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, I think that there's a little bit better of a chance here in Ada County than there would have ever been in Latop, or what that's worth.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Did anybody notice in the last one when he crossed his legs? Did you notice he had jeans on?
Yes,
all I could think of was, I bet you anything he's got a Harley outside and those jeans, and I bet he's got on a pair of black Harley boots. I mean, because he just comes off like that, like I don't give a shit, And I think that he's going to do strictly by the law. And I mean, I really don't see him giving in to public whatever or boss whatever. I mean, I really see him as that Harley rider that says, F you, I'm going to do it my way.
Yeah.
Yep.
I've got a question for Hella.
Yes.
So Hella, Nina so beautifully talked about the Maryland, Montana, and Utah, how they have those laws about the IGG. I know the DOJ has a similar guidelines that is almost word for word for the Maryland one, but it's not as in depth. And a lot of times when 3 states are going in that direction, there are other states that are talking about these same laws and regulations. Do you think that Judge Hitler, which I'm pretty sure he would know about some of these things that are coming down, would that be something that could be appealed and put back, or would he feel comfortable not ruling in a way where that these certain things might be coming down later after this ruling?
He won't do it because somebody else is doing it. He'll do it because there's so much evidence in front of him that he knows he will get overturned if he does not rule in that way, right? So if he looks at what's in front of him and goes, okay, this is going to be reversed if I do not rule in this way, he will rule that way. Simple. He will not care. He will not care what people out there say, what the Gonsalves say, what Vinnie Politan says. He
But
will
that's
not
any
give a
judge.
flying hoot.
Well, I agree with you.
That's not
but,
really any judge.
These laws are, they're written down and they become part of the fabric of the things that Hitler is looking at, because they are written down and they become a part of the state laws.
Are you saying that there's actual case law out there to support it?
Yes. And so I'm saying that because of that case law, it may come to Idaho when it's their turn to determine if they want to make those laws, which it may not be his decision. I'm not sure how Stephen Mercer was involved with getting that up and running for Maryland and DC. And so there is law out there that he helped write. And so because of that, there are other states that are also looking at that, because if you noticed before, let's say the death penalty, for example, there were a few states that started, okay, we don't want to do this anymore. And so then some other states kind of followed suit. They do build up their case law from some of these big decisions that other states make. So he would be very aware, or he might actually look that up, because he is the type of judge that does do their homework. And he would have to say, oh, I need to know something about this IGG. And what is out there is the laws that Stephen Hitler or Mercer has written, or the case law.
They are actually lobbying for House Bill 519. and
Oh.
that adopts everything in Maryland, and that's for every state to adopt House Bill 519.
Whoa, do you
Can
know
you
when?
explain that, please? What's
Yeah,
House
please,
Bill 9?
please
What's House
more.
Bill 519, please?
That's at the national level?
I actually found it, and it really surprised me. The American Bar Association, they are the big lobbyist that is doing the House Bill 519. And what you've got to consider too, though, is C.C. Moore helped with Maryland, and it is written into the law that if whatever happens with the IGG, that the perpetrator still has to go to trial. It's written in that law. And I mean, so as far as the IGG getting taken out, from what I understand, and this is in my opinion, is number one, it cannot be used in court because it's inadmissible in court because it's not a science, it's not anything proven. Number two is it's only used as a tip. That's it. It's just like an informant. And see, that's another thing that's happening too, is, you know, in my opinion, I don't think there's going to be this surprise informant coming through the door.
It's the DNA.
I think the IGG
Well,
is the informant.
Well, that's what I mean, we learned that already from Judge Judges. He said these are informants, maybe not in the traditional way that you think, but the people on the family, they're, and I think that's who the privacy is all of it. They have to keep protected. He said these are informants. Period.
Right.
You know, a lot of,
I think they said they were called genetic informants.
Yeah. So Nina, you don't think, because I know some of the people in the community are thinking that there is a traditional informant out there who maybe
no, there's not. In my opinion, that's all I can say is in my opinion.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's to me, yeah, it's the same. It's been that way for a long time. It's been the DNA.
But you know, if they're not going to use it in court, and it cannot be used as far as any kind of arrest warrant, any kind of, you know, it would be just like the informant calling up to the tip line and saying, "Hey, you need to go check out this guy." It's just a tip. That's it.
Yeah.
And
just the tip.
So that's the reason that I think it'll stay, is because of the way that, you know, the precedent's already been set in, I think 70 cases of it staying in court.
Mm-hmm.
But the problem is how the tip was obtained, because if it was obtained from, like, there's a curtilage issue, as in how do they get the thing in order to, or the piece of rubbish in order to then test it, then that starts the chain of events that causes a domino effect, right? So,
but the only way that it would be, the only way that you could say kick it out would be if they found out it was planted.
Right. They didn't even test it for a month.
I don't know if that
there's just some odd things. I mean, the DoorDash driver, the last person, you know, literally before the, you know, the perps, we don't know male or female. We don't know where the delivery came from. The only person treated differently in that case. And for a while, I thought maybe this is BK, but then we find out that no, he came forward. They didn't even issue a warrant to DoorDash until, what was it, December 6th or 7th? I don't understand this case.
The flaxen being, you're saying that's how it's done in all cases, they take trash. Yes, well, it wouldn't be an issue if they weren't on the property unlawfully taking trash, right? So why has this even come up as an issue if there isn't a curtilage problem? There is a curtilage problem, right?
But it hasn't been proven that it was planted.
No. I'm not sure about whether it was planted or not, but it's the problem is they shouldn't have taken that bit of trash from that place. They didn't have a search warrant for that rubbish container at that time.
The trash is on the street, though, Hal. If it's on the street, there. They can go.
Yeah.
It wasn't on the street yet. It was inside the boundary.
As long as it's outside the house and not in the garage, the Supreme Court versus Greenwood ruled on that, and that's been ruled from the Supreme Court that it's free game.
Can we just, Tony Stevenson's got a good, hi Tony, good to see you in here. Is bushy eyebrows really a valid observation in the PCA as partial cause for arrest? First off, DM never identified BK's bushy eyebrows as being the bushy eyebrows she saw. That came directly from Brett Payne, who looked at Brian Koberger's driver's license, which they had from the, what was it, Audrey? The August stop, they got his license, and it was Brett Payne who said he seems to have bushy eyebrows. So it was never a DM issue. I mean,
Yeah, he
that's
looked at the ID and noticed the bushy eyebrows.
and I'm like, dude, what are you doing? Why are you giving an identification? Don't they usually throw down 5 licenses and call the witness in and
They're
say,
not even bushy. That's the thing. They're not even bushy. Unless he's got a hair trimmer in jail, you know, shaping his eyebrows. I don't
bushy eyebrows were over on Banfield. That's where they were.
I don't
I was
see
like,
bushy.
Brett Payne would have to
I
say,
think he did
You
get a
guys remember
grooming.
Captain Kangaroo? Or you remember him? That's bushy. Okay, those are bushy eyebrows.
So what does anybody think about Exhibit A? Because I refuse to say we have a PCA. I think the
Right.
PCA is sealed.
no,
Yeah, it's
that's the PCA. That's the P. He gave 2. He gave 2. That's exactly what Marshall. Look. First off, it's not even an affidavit. An affidavit's going to have a notary public signature. You're going to be forced to-
Saeed.
It looks like yes, Saeed has.
Yes, right.
But yeah,
Yep.
no, I
Yeah.
think that's just Brett Payne, another
Huge
Brett Payne
brows.
error.
Right.
Calling it 1122 King Street, 8458 versus the 8548 phone, calling him Brian Coburg. Who's Brian Coburg? You know, putting Indian Town in Idaho when it's in Washington.
Oh yeah.
I just think that was just one of his being sloppy. Some of the people in chat were saying this was a rush job. CJ and I have had this conversation a million times. We both agree. I agree with you, whoever said it, that they needed to arrest someone before the January term started up, or it would have been disaster for Moscow financially.
Oh yeah, for sure. For sure. It's like when I first showed up, and the first day I was there, what I do in any of the places that I go to, any of the locations, number one, I go to the scene and I look for security. I look for cameras. I look for any of that because that's going to tell me, number one, who has what and not who changed what after something took place. And also it's going to let me know, okay, this if somebody's going to commit a crime and they're focused on security, which most people are, then I need to know the areas that I need to focus on and not necessarily certain ones or whatever, or focus on when it comes to footage and what it would have captured. And then I also explore the area. I want to get a feel for it. I need to let it sink in because I need to read it all. And when I was first driving there, the first day I'm driving through the neighborhoods after I went to the crime scene, I'm driving through the neighborhoods, and I used to do roofing 20 years ago. And so I'm driving down the road and I start noticing, like, just from my own experience, I start noticing, dang, there's a lot of these roofs that need replaced. So what that told me was that the community isn't thriving as much as the university, because if the community was thriving, it'd be easier for people to get home loans. It'd be easier for people when it comes to wages, tax breaks, all these different things. And what's the one thing that a homeowner is going to take care of first more than anything else? Their roof. So when I'm seeing roofs, a whole area, I'm just like going, this is crazy. These roofs, you can tell they're bowing, the stains and all the chimneys and how they're starting to fall. And I'm sitting there going, this community is getting sucked dry from this university.
Mhm.
That right there is what made me start to look into everything behind the university when it comes to the financials and where the money goes, because to me, I already knew from that first moment The money's not going to the community. And Steve G even said it too. He even said, look, I'm not trying to make Moscow a ghost town, but
Right.
people need to step it up. People know. It's just like when we were there, and that's when I started looking into the background. That's when I discovered that the University of Idaho became a University of Idaho before 2 years before Idaho even became a state of the United States. And the reason that the University of Idaho became a university in Moscow was because if they didn't have a university in that panhandle up north, they would have lost the territory to Montana, Washington, or Oregon. And that's the only reason. That's why, number one, I think a lot of things are overlooked up there, because they know if this university really did go away, there goes everybody that pretty much Coeur d'Alene, that's always going to be its own little special tourist spot. It's beautiful. Other than that, there ain't nothing in northern Idaho. And after time, who says, because that was part of the deal. That was part of the deal. You got to have a university here in order for you to keep this land. And they didn't even have a state yet.
CJ, I don't want to change the subject, but you mentioned something that when you were out there, and CJ was out there before the house came down last year. Definitely take a look at his video when he recreated the path. I want to ask you a question. You didn't see any cameras across the street, like directly across the street from 1122 or on 1122?
No, not because that's one of the things I wanted to. I looked everywhere in that neighborhood for the cameras, and that's the first spot that I looked at was, I think it was, I'm trying to remember the address. It's been so long. It's right across. It's got a 7 in it. 1107 maybe.
So what camera possibly picked up suspect vehicle 1 attempting to park right in front of 1120? Could that camera have picked that up, or did that have to come from an eyewitness, do you think?
No, there was no camera on King Road across. So if you're talking about where everybody parked at.
No, I'm talking about the part of the PCA where he's now, where Payne is describing suspect vehicle 1's, approaches multiple times. Went down to, what was it, to the Queen Road Apartments, turned around, right before he did the 3-point turn, you're saying he attempted to park. Suspect vehicle 1, the driver, attempted to park the car in front of 1122 King Road. So I'm just wondering, what camera would have picked that up? That had to have come from an eyewitness, right? Because it wouldn't have been any camera pointing to the house.
I think a camera on 1126 was pointed towards the sliding glass door of 1122.
No, the front.
Other than that, there's only 1112, and that picks up the intersection of Queen and King Road. And I didn't see any other cameras there.
What camera picked up the girls getting home?
1112.
That's what I think. 1126. So here, let me show you something real quick.
See, I totally think 1126 has a camera.
Yeah, because here, let me go to the map here real quick.
And the reason I think that is based on a statement from Steve G.
Yeah. Steve G.
Talking about the angles or the I forgot. I don't know the exact wording, but it was a letter that he wrote trying to get them not to tear the house down. And he's talking about the points of interest from the camera view of the back.
Yeah, where you could and that's why
but that doesn't answer the Payne question, where he's saying that suspect vehicle 1 attempted to park in front of 1122 and not being able to do that. Then he went forward and then made the 3-point turn, which would have
I think that could have been based on headlights.
Yeah, that's the only way it would have, is off of 1112. And when you're talking about how dark it is there, that's you could probably see off of headlights, but you're not to sit there and say that, I'm sorry, off of a gray. off of a black and white night vision ring camera, you're not going to pick up the tail lights if they're parking in front of 1122. There's just so much distance. The tail lights aren't going to be that bright. It's not like a headlight where it's like shining extended a block. I don't see how you would see that, and it would have to come from an eyewitness. The only other thing that I would think of is it could be 1126, and I really don't think it would have picked up that, but it could have.
Well, Jeff's here, and hey, Jeff, he's saying, doesn't the PCA say the vehicle was seen trying to park? That couldn't be I would say that's got to be an eyewitness if there's no camera.
Well, I would think it would be an eyewitness, because it's almost like what I'm saying about excuse me, DoorDash driver or case out. And that's why I'm saying, like, when somebody's door dashing and they're getting lost, you know, the person that is going to commit the crime isn't going to sit there and do a 3-point turnaround, half-ass 3-point turnaround in the middle of an intersection, and not think that somebody might be up that late going, because it's all tight. It's all a tight area right there. If you got headlights, it's a hilly area. Some of your headlights are gonna point in somebody's freaking windows. And if I'm gonna go there to commit the crime, the last thing I'm gonna do is do any kind of 3-point turn or drive around a few times, because the one time that I do that, it brings attention already. The last thing I'm going to do want to do is bring attention to myself. So I don't see them doing that in the first place. Now, when it comes to what you're asking, though, this right here. So I believe this is 1126. Okay.
Yep.
Now, right here. Now, this is where the camera, I believe there's a camera at this property. I believe the camera is facing this area and the back of the house. Now,
Right at the patio.
So, right, it's straight at the patio. And when I
Right.
show you the footage, when I'm behind the house and I show you how close it is from the parking lot to the cement slab in front of the sliding glass door, and then I turn to the left and I show you how close 1126 is, it's like this Google image lies to you and makes you think that it's farther back, because you look at the cars here and you look at that, but literally, and I'll show you guys the video in a few minutes.
It's so close that it has a man gate.
It's close, yeah, and it's all fenced off, and it is very close. So I really feel like if the person did enter or exit through the sliding glass door, the side of the house, or even coming up to the front, it would have caught something. Now, when it comes to the question about the lights that you're talking about, pulling up in front of 1122, this would be the only, if there is a camera on 1126, which I think there is, this would be the only line of sight that would give you in front of 1122 King Road. So that possibly, if there is a camera, that possibly could be a camera that showed a little teeny light off to the left, kind of sneak in and stop. I could see how that would, but 1112, no, you're facing in this direction. You're getting all of this area right here. That's what you're getting on 11.
You're getting leaving, you know, going on wherever he's going from there. You're getting the 3-point turn. Perfect. And, but okay, that makes sense. So possibly that camera in the back would have caught the girls, maybe if they went in from the back when they got home, as opposed to going in front. Right.
Yeah. This is basically, so I'm kind of like giving you the outline of the camera, what the camera would have picked up based off of the structures that are around, because obviously it's going to pick up something here, but it's going to stop at the tree. Okay. So this is basically, when it comes to the camera view of what we're focusing on, this is basically the view that camera would have picked up.
Okay, so if we don't know the point of entry because the PCA doesn't tell us, right? And that's all we have. So if the person either went in through the slider, or CJ, your theory is you think he jumped up to the third floor, wouldn't that camera have caught him?
Yes.
It would have caught him on the deck.
Yeah.
But not
Because-
necessarily the balcony?
It would have caught him on the deck. So if we're looking back here, okay, so I'm gonna, and I'll go to the footage, and I think I showed it on my last show. If you're looking at this street right here, okay, this street right here is level with the third floor deck. So if you're looking at your foot standing on the street, you look over to your left, your foot is basically going to be the same, the same height. So when you're coming down here, it's heavily wooded right there, and you have some trees sticking out here. So there's enough shrubbery and bushes right here where they wouldn't have seen him. But once they got to the deck, yeah, they would have picked somebody up on the deck. And I feel they would have picked somebody up very clearly on the deck, because when you're talking about this night vision, it is pretty good. Let's be honest. Unless, you're getting like version after copied version after copied version, and it starts to dilute the quality. But I really feel, because in that back part of the house where this finger's at, okay, and you even hear like Chris McDonough talking about it and all these other different people, it's true. You can see the cinder blocks there. When I was there was still cinder blocks laying there. It's like they didn't even worry about picking up all the extra stuff that was around there. It was crazy. So when I get there, I see how high that road is compared to the third floor deck. The third floor deck is not very far from the road, so that drops off. The dirt drops drastically. But the thing is there's just a little bit of room. So as that hill starts to drop and head in this angle, that's where it meets that back right post. And so really, from the right side of the back of the house to the left side, you're talking about a good foot or so difference, maybe even more. And when you got landscaping blocks, there was landscaping blocks all over this area. There was landscaping blocks all right here next to the ladder. Right before you got to the ladder, we showed you the landscaping blocks that looked different, and how one of them was knocked over based off the moisture pattern of one of those cinder blocks, like almost somebody dropped down or did walk out the sliding glass door on the second floor and was making a run for it along the side of the house, and went to jump off the retaining wall and lost their footing because one of those cinder blocks fell and then landed on the ground. And there's a few of them laying there the next morning after everything took place as well. So no matter what,
and you can see that plain as day in that footage that you played from the was that thing in the air?
Oh yeah, that was from the drone.
Yeah, from the drone.
Yep. And we zoomed in on it, and you could see, and I discussed the moisture pattern and the stains and how you can see
it looks just like a shoe print.
Right. And yeah, like a shoe print. And then obviously there was some bricks that fell off.
Right.
And so, yeah, when it comes to this, and I really do feel like there is a camera there.
Steve G was pretty adamant about it.
Yeah, because when he first brought it up, everybody was talking about this property right here, these little properties right here. And I can't remember what the number is. It's like 1107 or something like that, maybe. It has a 7 in it.
Right. 712.
Yeah, 712. There we go.
Yeah.
That's when I was like, no, you guys, there ain't no camera there, because I've already went through all the footage from local news clips from the day after it happened. Went through all sorts of different footage from different creators that were there. And then when I went there and saw that there wasn't even a camera, I could see somebody putting one up after, but I don't see him taking it down, because then it would be pretty obvious that they had it. That's what really started to make me go, you know what? I really feel like 1126 does have a camera now.
Yeah.
At
because
that time,
he talks about they're not going to be able to see where he parked and what he looked at when he was up there, what windows he looked in and stuff like that. And the only way that somebody would know all that is if he's parked in the back and there's a camera at 1126.
Yeah. And you have, and being back there, whoever's in that parking lot has an advantage when it comes to anybody in that household, when it comes to see who can see who, even if there is lighting. So, think about, like, if you're inside and the house is lit up and you're eating dinner at the table, and all of a sudden you hear something outside and you're like, what was that? And so you go look out the window of your dining room, you're trying to see what was that noise back there. Your eyes kind of play tricks on you because it can't adjust to the light exposure from trying to focus at the dinner table in the light compared to focusing on something that's at a distance in the dark. It's hard for the eye to go back and forth. Now, if you go outside for a minute, your eye will adjust and then you'll be able to focus a lot easier. And so when it comes to somebody being inside the house, the lights are on, people are having fun, everybody, like the cover that you have from all of the shrubbery and the trees and the bushes and how it's placed and how close it is to the back of that house, and how you could just take 3 steps to the left, still be behind a tree, and be able to see everything in the second floor sliding glass door to Dylan's door, to who's going upstairs to the 3rd floor, to who's going. You could see a little bit of the 2nd floor living room. Not to mention, you could see everything upstairs in Kaylee's room. With that angle, you could see Maddie's window. You could see Dylan's window. And the only thing you really couldn't see is the 2 rooms downstairs on the very bottom floor in Ethan and Xana's room, because there wasn't a window facing the back. It was only facing towards the street. And so that kind of area, you would be able to have so much cover with how dark it is. When you're talking about the fall through the winter through the spring, you're talking you're almost next to Canada, so you're way up on the north side of the earth. And when you're tilted in the wintertime and the Earth's axis is pointed the most, the northern hemisphere is pointed the most away from the sun, it gets real frickin' dark out there, especially when the biggest cities in that area are Pullman and Moscow, which don't generate a lot of light as it is. So you mix the darkness, and then you mix the shrubbery and the surroundings and how close and how cramped everything is. It had to be like, I could see why LE thought maybe it was a target at first, because it really is. When I went and when I pulled in the back parking lot and I sat there and I looked how close I could have jumped up on the 3rd floor deck, and then I'm sitting there thinking, how often do people probably forget to lock their 3rd floor deck because they don't think somebody's going to come in it, and all these different things. And I'm just like, man, this is crazy. It is a actual perfect setup.
And especially when you got a dog up there that's got to go out maybe and do, relieve himself because you're out for hours. I agree with you. I think that is a possible point of entry. That door would have likely been kept open so that Murphy could go out and do his business. Otherwise, Kaylee's coming back to, whatever, inside the bedroom.
Yeah. And that's
you got to consider too that there's that green chair up against the pole.
Oh yeah, they could have climbed up on that, right?
That's why I think it was accidentally left unlocked. And I really feel like, I'm not that kind of person, but when, I try and put myself in both sides. Whenever I go to an area, I'm putting myself in the victim's role, and I'm putting myself in the killer's role. And go ahead.
I want to say too that, I may be on the unpopular opinion on this side, but I want everybody to know that, like CJ was talking about with the city and stuff and the college, there is so many benefits to the college with this happening. And I'm not afraid to say that. Okay. I mean, that's the thing about it is the area that he's got the picture of there. I mean, after the 1122 happened, one person, the previous owners sold it to one person and they sold it to Eagle Investment. And then Eagle Investment turned around and sold all those properties to Cottonwood Development. And Eagle Investment and Cottonwood Development is owned by Steve Weeks, which is the same person. So why do it that way? Why? Because the university has a Greek row expansion strategy that is to be completed by 2025, which is going to extend into that area. So now you've got a developer that owns all that land.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to develop that land. So I hate to say this, and no, I don't, because I'll put it out there. I say that it's it's land for contracts.
Yeah, it's just like who
Yeah.
like you write a book before the trial's even done. You know?
That happens.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah, and
when-
it just-
and you're right. Look at all the grants and the money programs that they're getting, all of the incentives and the money is,
memorial.
money is just rolling in. It really is. That's why Green is being hailed as like the savior of the University of Idaho. He really is.
Steve Green, as much as I call him Idaho Green, but anyway, Idaho Green ain't stupid. I mean, when they, for the Phoenix purchase and everything, making it a nonprofit, because all that did was with the nonprofit, it wiped out all that government debt that was owed to the veterans and everything that the senators was having such a bitch about.
Yeah, because and that's what one of the things. And thank you for your contributions too. I appreciate it. That was one of the things that I was saying. It's like because we actually started bringing attention. It was like just shortly after it became public. And Kevin Reichert was the only guy from Idaho that was discussing it, talking about it, putting it out in the open, and he was involved in it too. And that's the thing. I'm sitting there going, you guys, like, if the military doesn't want to have anything to do with that, why would a university purchase it when our own military said no? You're screwing our service members based off of your fake crap, and we're not going to use you anymore. And then Idaho, it's the enrollment number. That's what they like. They did a great job. And if like they did a great, like they literally, if they wouldn't have got anybody arrested before the new semester started, that the students already told you after the new semester started, after they had somebody arrested, only 50% of the students were showing back up.
And see, the thing about it is,
sorry, excuse me, sorry, I have to get going. Thank you so much.
No, thank you.
For
Appreciate
having me here today. It's Sunday afternoon. I have to go do some things.
Enjoy your day, Hella.
Yeah, thank you.
it was nice meeting you.
Lovely to meet you all. Much appreciated.
Yes, nice to meet you.
Thank you.
Yeah. Guys, if you haven't checked out my channel, please do. Excited Utterance. Just search me up. I have lots of Idaho 4 content, so it'd be really great if to see you around there.
Yep.
Much
I've been dropping
appreciated.
your link too.
For sure.
In chat
Thank
there.
you
Cheers,
very much.
Hannah.
Lovely to
Yeah.
meet you all. Mwah. Bye.
Always
Thank
a
you.
pleasure. Bye.
Let me see here. Okay, what were we talking about?
The
About
benefits to the college. And I'm not saying the college was involved. I'm just saying that
No.
they totally took advantage of a bad situation.
oh yeah. Yeah, and I really feel like if they didn't have anybody arrested, the college would have fallen apart, because how many of you that have children would have told your child to go back to school if they didn't find the person that committed that horrific crime.
Very
Oh, no
few,
way.
very
You're
few.
you're out your damn mind. You
Yeah.
know.
And see, what's amazing to me is with a crime like that, you would think that the housing value would go down.
It did.
In 2023, when the Eagle, and I mean, when they, not Eagle, Team Idaho sold the properties, it was increased anywhere from 28% to 54% on the properties. Increased.
Mm-hmm. Yep, and it's just going to keep going up.
Well, now the
That's why
knocked down. You know, that's why they wanted it knocked down too. That wasn't doing anything for property values around.
because how many people go there now? You know, how many people went there when the house was still up? That was one of the reasons why I went out there, because I knew the house was going to be tore down, and I was like, we need to get footage of all of this before it's gone forever, because it's important. After that, how many people are showing up? Not very many. You're not going to remember. It's going to be easier to forget when you just see a dirt lot instead of the actual house with boarded up windows and crime scene tape.
But thinking of it from a business standpoint too, CJ, with the house being gone that soon, it gives them more time to develop that land.
Oh yeah, they can move it however they want to, basically now. Because before they even renovated it the way that it ended up being, that we all know of, it was that was a renovation on top of another renovation. And they were fighting like crazy to try and get that renovation that we all know of approved.
Right.
They were fighting like crazy. They were having to come back and, well, nope, this ain't good enough. You need to make sure that this exists and all this other stuff. And they finally were allowed. They had to remove the garage in order for that renovation to take place, which is crazy to me, because that lot that we see right there is designated for another house beyond what you see there, and I don't see how another house could even fit
another house there
in that area. You know what I mean? But yeah, everything's gonna be going up. That's why I always felt like when I read President Green's book, and he said that he sent out crisis teams to the sororities and the fraternities that morning before law enforcement showed up, because they didn't show up until 4, supposedly, and he was talking about 11:30 in that time frame. And then the law enforcement doesn't have a press conference, which means they didn't even know what was going on. And when it comes to a crisis team of counselors, they already don't want to talk to police. So how are they going to try and get information to try and solve the crime? They're going to have the counselors reach out to the students, because that's what the counselors are already there for the students, is to have them be comfortable enough to talk to them about things that maybe they don't want to say, about other, and so I feel like the university was in the perfect situation. Number one, the university just bought the old police station before they went and got their new one. And who helped with the funding of that? University of Idaho helped them get their new police station that they needed so desperately bad. They knew who the big brother was, and they didn't want to upset the big brother. That's why I feel like you saw Green instead of the FBI standing at all the press conferences, because there's no way he should have been standing up at any of those press conferences, because that's for law enforcement officials, and he's not one. And I feel like everybody was like, oh, you know what? The counselors, they reached out. They were the ones that were collecting the information. President Green was the one that was deciding who got what and how much they got of it. And I feel like he's the one that carefully crafted and manipulated this whole thing. And he did a hell of a job, because
he got the college $1 million.
Boom.
And then there's some discussion. He was in law enforcement meetings. What is he possibly doing? Sitting at the table with Moscow Police Department, ISP, FBI. First
But you
off,
got to,
the property wasn't on U of I property, number one. Number two, like CJ said, he's not law enforcement. It just goes to show you he runs that town. Moscow Police Department don't get as many overtime hours if enrollment is not, it goes down at that school because they're LE there. Plus all of the officers that they need. They bought an expensive dog. That comes from University of Idaho money. Either
well,
direct.
see, you got to consider too that that's the reason they have two badges, is because it comes down and then it splits off, and part of them are contracted to MPD and part of them are contracted to the college, and that's the reason that they have two badges.
Yeah, it's all separated so they can it's plausible deniability and being able to distance yourself but still be connected. It's all it's all a huge intricate spider web of connections but separations and distances, and it's just like what they do with the fraternities. They have the fraternities be the first responder volunteers that work from 4 o'clock in the afternoon on weekdays until 7 in the morning. They handle all the calls at night. This is college. Okay. When does most stuff happen? Not at 11 in the morning. It's happening at 11 at night. The volunteers from the fraternities are the first responders that show up for those calls. It's the same thing. There's a connection. We all rank up, but if something bad happens, every single hierarchy knows their place. They've been doing it so long. It's such a well-oiled machine. That's why they treat people the way that they do when they have a difference of opinion or they have a different approach, just like what they did to James Lighthurt when I talked to him and had him on the show.
Oh, I remember that too.
We just put that video out. I hadn't had that video out for a long time other than when we did a live on it, and I just put it out there. It's like a year old, something like that. And he tells you, like, he grew up in Moscow. He was there from the age of 6. And that was the reason why he left and did what he's doing and living in Albania and all these other things. He went to Christ Church in Moscow. He was around all of not only Moscow and how they wanted you to be a certain way, and he was also part of the community that didn't. No, I don't want to go that way. That's not good for the soul. It should be about this and this and this. And they treated him so bad, not only at school, in the community, everywhere, that it made him basically try to find a home outside of that home because of how he was treated. It's just like when we're watching the dude that's selling you houses in Idaho, and he's telling you the one thing you need to make sure you do first is change your damn license plate when you move there, because as soon as somebody sees you ain't from there, they're already going to be, it's already, we don't want outsiders. We don't want any kind of progressive approach. We've been doing things our way this long. It's been going damn fine, and we ain't about to have anybody change it up. And that's why they basically just, get rid of them like that, whether it's the pressure, the environment, or some people just accept it and deal with it. There's even family members of his that won't even talk. They don't even talk because of his views on how he was treated and what takes place and stuff. So you got to fall in line. If you don't fall in line, then you get treated like shit. And what is more fun, getting treated like shit or having a bunch of awards and a bunch of money in your pocket? It's more fun to have awards and money in your pocket than get treated like shit. So it's a lot easier to go along with how it all works instead of be the one that tries to make a difference.
Yeah, I don't think that anyone who's centrally involved in this case, from Kathy Mabott down to Judge John Judge, down to Fry, down to, the regular officers, Officer Smith, Officer, Rosendahl. They all went to the University of Idaho. They don't believe in expanding their horizons a little bit, because a lot of kids at the age of 17, 18, they want to go out of state. If you live in Florida, you want to go to Texas, or if you live in Alabama, you want to go somewhere else. They don't believe in going anywhere else. I think the only
a lot of them are scared because when you're living in that, so the way that he described it is that his bubble was basically like a few thousand people. So when your bubble is that small, you can't, if you're going to drive 15, 20 minutes, you're just driving to a cornfield. You're not even going to another city. So when you're used to growing up in that small, confined, there's nothing outside of you or within reach or your eyesight, it's kind of scary to go, to go explore. But at the same time, if you're seeing people having a great old time, getting awards and making good money, and, what's the big important thing over there? Status, accolades, importance. You can basically walk around there and do anything you want if you have a certain level of status, or, hell, when they're taking photos of people's driver's license, and how many times can law enforcement get away with writing no report?
Well, yeah, they got to make it seem like it's a lot safer than what it is, to a tribe, because the last thing you want is what parents going to want to send their kid from, let's say, out of the area, another part of the state, to a school that has high crime. So therefore you pretend, there were a lot of reports that seemed like they should have been written up that weren't, and it just seems like everything is for this university reminds me a little bit of Scientology. We've got that here in Clearwater.
Papa Murphy's new cheesy stuffed crust pizza.
You can't
Fresh by us.
You can't take your money and go somewhere else. You got to put the money back into the University of Idaho. If you decide, most people do, is maybe they'll get their bachelor's in one school, they'll get their master's somewhere else to get the different philosophies. Nope, everything's got to stay in University of Idaho. And if you don't, I can just imagine, this young man, he must have been an outcast if he had a little bit, different thoughts and didn't want to be in this cult-like, community. It's what it reminds me of. It's like a little cult. The only person who didn't go to the University of Idaho, who's on MPD, I think is the canine, went to another school. Everybody else, every member of that department and their wives they all graduated from U of I. It's like, dude, don't you want to maybe expand your horizons a little bit?
No, because they're like, hey, if I just kick it like this, I got status instead of trying to go somewhere else, bust my ass, and then who knows what happens here. I've known Jimmy since, I've known Jimmy's grandma, for years. Like, everybody knows each other, and they know, like, what frickin' officer in a promotional video for your police department says, if you want to rank up quicker, come to Moscow because they offer a lot of great opportunities for you to get ranked quick.
Whether or not you have the qualifications, you're going to rank up quick, right?
Who says that? Rosenthal says that. That's who said it. In the promotional video, like, yeah, if you want to rank up quick, come on here. Like, dude, why are you listen, like, if it's that easy, why are you spreading the information for other people to like, wouldn't you want it all for yourself or what? But no, that's the common thing. It's the common thing. It's all of them, the universe, except for the community. The 40-year-old guy that's working at a factory, busting his tail, working 55 hours a week, can't even barely make his bills. and that guy right there don't get taken care of. He has to sit there and be like, geez, but he's already tied in. He can't, he's already at a loss. He's going to take another loss if he tries to go somewhere else to make a living. And so he has to sit there and look at his shitty fucking roof and go, damn, I wish things could be better. Why can't I get, look at all the money. Shoot, look at all the money that the fraternities and sororities make for the university, man. You're talking 500,000 in a year.
Yeah, if that, just imagine if that, apart from what you said before, CJ, that it's not that the university, was built for this university is the town, and basically probably also the county. This university goes away.
The north of the state.
What commerce possibly did you see in your travels around the area that could possibly make up for what income, tax base, services, everything else that either directly or indirectly comes in that what could possibly, is there any engineering firm, is there any other type of organ that could ever take that whole county probably would go down, right?
Everything's north in Washington State, in Spokane. Like that's where it's at. It's not anywhere by that area. Maybe the Home Depot that's going to be built on university land. Maybe that. I mean, did that ever get built finally or what? Because it's been probably a little over a year that they were talking about building a Home Depot on university land.
Oh yeah, they're making millions off renting the land.
Yeah. They're leasing the land. University of Idaho, that is paid from by taxpayers, is then leasing land to a corporation. Why do they do the things that they do? How do they get away with the things that they do? It's the same thing. Secrets and money, just like religion. Why do some people see the writing on the wall and they're still there? It's either secrets or money.
Yeah.
It's secrets or money with any of this stuff.
That's when you ask yourself, who's more powerful, Idaho Green or don't be Doug Wilson?
It's green because if that university doesn't exist, half of that state doesn't exist.
Right.
Because you can go back to it. 2 years before Idaho was made a state, they had the University of Idaho there, and that was the stipulation. If this university does not succeed, it's going to either or. Now, all the way back in the beginning, there was fires, very suspicious fires in the very beginnings of the University of Idaho. There's nothing around there. There hasn't been nothing around there. How did they get all the funding to rebuild everything brand new? They know how important it is. Everybody knows. Maybe not for Washington State, because honestly, Pullman is probably like, look, we're the big brother. You guys don't even know what you're doing. Moscow even admires Pullman in city council meetings for how effective they are with planning and zoning and all those other things. Pullman is the big brother. Washington State side, they don't give a shit because they already know Pullman is going to be pulling in regardless of University of Idaho's there or not. In fact, they would probably get twice as much attendance. And Washington State University is a really cool college. But when it comes to the Idaho side, you're talking all the way up to elected officials are going to have an investment because you never know. How many times have we heard of like Texas? They might branch off, you guys. Like, it's just talk.
Right.
But it's
never going to happen.
But it's real. And who says when it comes to the money and when it comes to how much land is worth, you look at all the money that the university gets from all the agricultural programs, not only from the state, but from the government for all the work that they're doing for agricultural stuff. That land right there is very, very, very valuable, especially at an agricultural standpoint. You can't tell me if that university went away, all of a sudden the funding started to dwindle all the way up there on the northern part of the state because there's nothing there but Coeur d'Alene, and Coeur d'Alene ain't going to save it.
Hmm.
You can't tell me that one of these other states, like Washington State, that's having money problems, isn't going to try something. Be like, yo, back in these documents from all the way back in 1800 and da da da.
No.
Well, I think that's our land now.
Yeah.
People fight over states fight over rivers and how much water they get to claim as their side. So it was like a perfect combination. Green, he was off, get Mr. Financial for a huge corporation. You can look it up. It looked a little shady and this and that. So then all of a sudden he comes back to he takes a pay cut from what he was making before at this corporation, takes a pay cut to come to the University of Idaho to be their new president. It's not about the money.
In education at all. No background. Background in business.
It's not about the money. It's about the power.
Mm-hmm.
And he knew, I can take this little swindling shit, bring it over to the university, sit there and say we're going to do this and we can do this and this and this and this and this, just like the deals with, how many deals do you think that the University of Phoenix online deal, that was a scam? Do you think that's the first scam? Oh no, that's just the first scam that they got caught with. There's plenty of more. And he's good at it. And the people that need that to exist up there are also going to look the other way, because guess what? They get some of this too. Everybody gets the awards, gets the money, just like the guy that called in the tip, about BK. He gets an award from the University of Idaho and doesn't even fucking go there. It's all public image. Always will be up there. And that's the unfortunate part. The younger people they know it'll take some time. It's just like South Carolina when it comes to their laws for domestic violence against women. They are ridiculous and they don't protect women whatsoever, period. It's going to take some time. There's things that are starting to change. Younger people are starting to get in there. You're getting rid of some of the old heads. Things are going to start to change. It's just going to take some time. But I don't know. When it comes to the court hearings and it comes to his guilt or not, I just hope the right thing happens. I don't know if he did it or not. I wasn't there. But the only thing I'm interested in is go ahead.
Sorry. I just think you did a good job, CJ, of painting the picture of the culture out there and how when it was so urgent to catch somebody, right? Because they need all those kids to come back, that they kind of just found somebody out of, the first thing they could find with that car, and then just kind of went with that and tried to build everything around that. In my opinion, that's what it seems like.
I've always said, and this is how I feel. I've always said if the Oregon car happened the same time that BK happened, I feel like that car would have been involved in the crime, if you catch my drift.
Was it before?
Yeah, it was before. The Oregon car happened in the beginning of December. They were all excited. They got
But
their
that's
team together.
after. But that's after the crime.
No. I'm saying when it came to BK. So when it came to BK's arrest.
Right.
So when they started to get onto BK, they were
Mhm.
still claiming December 16th and 17th, according to Fry. They were still looking for a 2011 to 2013. On December 16th or 17th, local news interviews. Okay. If they were really looking at Koberger, they would have said the 16th in that interview. Let's be honest. What I'm saying is if kind of like how they came across Koberger and then hurried up and filed this and then hurried up, got the affidavit, arrest, and all this other stuff. If you take that car, the Oregon car tip, and you put it at the same time when they started getting the connection to BK, the same time. So instead of the beginning of December, we're talking towards the end of December. If that car tip happened at the same time as when they were going after BK, I feel like that car would be involved in the crime. So to speak.
I thought the car tip at Washington State was November 30th.
I'm talking about the Oregon.
Right, but
so you're talking about.
So if you're the Portland car, and I don't know, it wasn't made public though, was it? November 30th. It wasn't made public.
No,
it was in the beginning of December. Or I thought you were talking about the Oregon car. I didn't realize you were talking about Koberger's car at his apartment.
Oh yeah, Koberger. So when the police find out, hey, we got a white car in Washington, and
it's not that hard.
They're hey, we got a guy. That's what I was just saying. Like they're gonna go with it. Like, oh, we're gonna go with it because
they had a lot.
We gotta arrest somebody.
Well, in my opinion, that he wasn't the only white car.
Hey guys, I gotta go. It was so nice to be on here, CJ. Thank you for having me. So nice to meet you, Nina, and typically you, Audrey. And Kathy.
Nice to meet you too.
I love you. Okay.
Appreciate you.
Kathy. Take care.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye.
I feel like because if you're going back to BK's car, which if you go to the one person that said and admitted that he gave the tip about BK's car, he also said that he also gave a list of 12 or 13 other vehicles too. So BK's white car wasn't the only. That's the white car. There was another 12 or 13 names on that piece of paper that he written down. This dude, the cities are not very big at all. It would only take me maybe 25 minutes to drive through all of Moscow, maybe 35 minutes to drive through all of Pullman. It doesn't take very long. And I could literally make a list of white cars and and such. Now when it comes to that tip though, this was always the interesting thing to me, because that person said he lived 1,200 footsteps from Koberger, and he's the one that turned in the tip. But the guy that turned in the vehicle with the 12 or 13 other vehicles has only lived in Idaho. He has never lived in Washington State. His wife actually works for Moscow PD. And so when it comes to that tip, yes, of course, if you own a white car, if your husband owned a white car and lived out in Washington State, he would have been on that list with Koberger. And so if your husband, was being charged, well, they could be like, yeah, we had him, we were on him, from here and here. But, just by not saying, yeah, but we had 12, 13 other names on here, we were just kind of going through each one. And so when I'm going off of what Fry is saying,
so then why pick his?
Because it was it that's why I'm saying, like, it was all based off of timing. How many days It was just a couple days that the new semester was starting before he was getting arrested.
Yeah, he was arrested the 30th, new semester. I mean, new semester, people start heading back to school right after New Year's.
On the 3rd.
Right, on
Just
the
a
3rd.
couple, yeah, just a couple days. And so that's why I was saying when it was about the Oregon car, if the Oregon car happened at the same time, like the 27th, 28th, 29th, 30th, the new semester starting in a couple days, yeah, that car is part of the crime. You know what I'm saying? If I feel if the Oregon car and BK were swapped around, I really feel like the BK tip would have been gone through and they would have been onto the Oregon car. It's just I don't think it's necessarily the person. I think it's the circumstance. They knew that they had to have somebody.
Did they investigate that Portland car?
Who
Supposedly,
knows what they do? Who knows? You know, this is why I wish that their files we could take a look at. I mean, they cleared all of the inner circle people in like so quickly, right? Do we remember when Lanier would stand up there and we cleared
So
this one, we
fast.
cleared that one, we cleared the other one, we cleared the other? It's like, dude, what type of investigating are you doing?
Mm-hmm.
Right? Who knows how much they investigated that Oregon car?
they didn't. They let everybody go right away.
Yeah.
Before, like, it could have been, you still had a week left of school. You could have been, guess what, you guys, we're not going to have class. And, you guys can go to Thanksgiving break early. We're not going to have class for a week. Do us a favor. Come down, talk to the counselors, get your healing, talk to us, and we can also get some statements, because you're going to tell me that they had a whole list of who all was there. They don't even know how many people were there 2 months after. They didn't even know how many people were there when they showed up to the crime scene. So there could be so many people that have information or could have had information that could have been even more valuable. Eyewitnesses that maybe could have saw something, but you know what? They already got sent back home. They were allowed to go back home, and they're like, look, I seen this. I ain't saying shit because they ain't found this person yet, and I'm not going to have them come back and find me and my family and all these other things. They didn't do it from the very beginning. When you let people that were there go home, you ruined it. You ruined it.
Exactly. Yeah, you've been saying that from the beginning. Yes, and I agree with you.
That's just crazy. I mean, some of those students, you're talking about people that lived I remember watching an early video, the girl, the blonde hair, who's seen standing out on the porch of 1112. She's packing up and leaving. You're talking about this happened steps away from their back window. They might have heard something, seen something, but then again, I don't think they wanted any connection to that university, any which way. So here you have, I don't want to be conspiracy theory. I'm trying to keep my mind open. We don't know what's behind, what's sealed. We have to keep open the possibility that he could have been involved some way. I mean, we're stupid if we're not, because we don't know what is behind seal. But look at this, my sister is convinced he's a patsy. You got this weirdo from back east. He's got no ties to nobody.
Yeah.
There's no ties to the community.
You're
He
an
doesn't
outsider.
have one. Great, wonderful, ticks all the boxes. Could you imagine if the person that they arrested was a caretaker at U of I, or was a student, or was something, that college would have been done.
Well, and the fact that, number one, you're already an outsider. You can hear people from Idaho tell you that if you're not from there, they're already on you. And he didn't even change his license plate when he first moved there. He was there for half a damn year almost before he even changed his license plate.
No wonder why he was getting stopped every 5 minutes.
He was
Right?
already a target, because you're a Yankee. You're a Yankee up in the Northwest. Like who hates a Yankee more? I mean, think about it,
You're gonna come in here,
you're
right?
from the total opposite other side of the country, and you're already a Yankee. They don't want you. Who's progressive? It's sorry, she's messing around with stuff. Come on, get down. Come on. Yeah, I should probably hop off here in a minute. We got another show coming up here in a little bit, Sebastian. But yeah, I'd like to. Is Saturday better or is Friday nights better? I'd like to do like a weekly thing where we all just kind of hang out and discuss some stuff, whatever's new going over the week.
That would be cool because you know what, CJ, it's going to start really heating up now. For a long time this year, we had change of venue. You'd have this and that, but I mean, once 2025 rolls around, it's going to be one thing after the other. A lot more people I know are starting to look at this case because this is such a big case. The crimes were horrible. They shock the senses, and then you're getting into this new age DNA and the Fourth Amendment issues, the secrecy. There's going to be a lot to discuss. Yeah, I'd be game for weekly if you want to do Friday or Saturday. It doesn't matter, either night.
Yeah, is like with you guys. Oh my gosh, baby, come on. Yeah, she's freaking out. Is Fridays better or Saturdays for you guys?
It doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter.
See,
okay.
I'm free anytime.
Yeah, because we're going to start seeing. I mean, once these hearings in January are going to be here before we know it. Those are going to be huge, and then who else knows what's going to happen between now and then? And then and then they get into all of the emotions and limine and everything else. And yeah, this is going to be. I believe this is the biggest case in the country right now.
Oh yeah, it will be.
So many reasons.
For a long time, yes.
Yeah, it will be. Yeah, for a long time, that's for sure. For sure.
And then who knows? Who knows what we're going to see? CJ, you and I, for a very long time, we all, as you get older and you start to see people at top, whatever it is, if it's government, if it's business, when they're hiding things, it's usually not for a good reason, for them not to be transparent. But who knows? Maybe when this evidence comes out, we'll say, "Wow, CJ, we were wrong. We were wrong, right?" We got to see.
Yeah, you got to. That's why it's important to explore all theories, thoughts, and opinions. But you have to do it respectfully because not everybody everybody agrees with it. But you have to. It's just like, when somebody's standing, that the guy way back in ancient times, and he's like, you know what, Jimmy, I think if we knock off the corners off of that square, we could get stuff moving a little quicker. That's a dumb idea, right? No, you got to think. You have to explore all theory. Well, you know what? Maybe that. And look what happened. We have cars and everything. It's amazing. Just because somebody was like, what?
I'm the newbie to the bunch, but I'm gonna tell you from what I've seen, the case that brought us all together is also the case that is tearing people apart. And
it's a shame too, Nina. And like I say, in my family, we go from he's 100% guilty to he's a scapegoat, and I won't give an opinion until I see the evidence. That's literally my family. And then there's me. My biggest concern about this case is the secrecy of it. I think this is a dangerous precedent. Yeah. I think this is what has allowed these crazy, wild theories, and it's got to stop. So. But you're right. I have not seen a case that divided people as much. But I'm glad. CJ has a policy, respect, and I'm glad on my two channels. That I've got people from all sides of the spectrum. But I mean, that's what makes it interesting. Today I watched a couple of shows that I haven't in a while. And they're on this they feel that there's this evidence that's presented points to guilt, and they gave some good theories. as to how they got to that and arrived at it. So it'll be
Well, if
interesting.
we're all talking about the same thing and have all the same opinions, how boring would that be?
Well, it would be too. And I think, but I think in the end, we all want the same thing. We want justice for these kids, for their families, and we want the right people, convicted, not the wrong.
100, absolutely.
Real justice, whether it's, because the real justice is the truth happening, and whether we think the truth is what matters, because that's the only justice. Otherwise, it doesn't happen. In fact, you go farther back from justice every step that non-justice takes place, and that's why we care so much about trying to make sure that the injustice is exposed, if it really is there, because it is important, and it does make a difference, because who knows, any of us could be at this moment from here. Maybe we're in this position before, maybe might be in this position in the future. It's very important. It's very important.
Agreed 100%.
Yeah, I want to say thank you all so much. I appreciate you guys. Thank you all in chat. I appreciate you as well. Thank you for your contributions and your support. And yes, we'll keep this going. We'll have another one next week. We'll all chit chat in the background. I'm thinking maybe Saturday night might be a good night to hang back and do this. So we'll go ahead and get another one scheduled. But I don't know. Look for Saturday night for us to be back again. And I just want to say thank you all so much. It's nice seeing you guys. Some I haven't seen for a while, like you typically. Thank you so much.
So good to see you again.
We got to get your husband out of the casino and on
Yes.
for the next one.
I know.
Is Saturday nights the casino night, or?
No, it just depends when he's in the mood.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. You got to watch some of my snow videos that I.
I did. I seen it.
That.
I did. That's why I was like, oh my gosh, like it's getting real bad up there. Yeah, I'm glad I'm far away from all that. But man, 60 inches. I didn't know it was that.
Wow.
And it's going to be 50 degrees Monday, so I'm afraid it's all going to melt like all at once.
Ooh, that's going to be a mess.
A lot of basements are going to be flooded coming up.
Yep.
Yeah. All right, y'all. Thank you so much. We'll be back here in about a half an hour or so. We'll be doing Sebastian Rogers. Thank you all for hanging out here tonight. Appreciate you. Peaceful and positive evening. If I don't see you tonight, we'll definitely see you tomorrow. Thank you all for being here. Appreciate it.
Bye.
Good night, everybody. Thank you.
Okay over there? Is your victim at the hospital? Someone shot there. Alright, do you see them take pictures of the, is it domestic related? She's calling back. We're going to try to give her a call again, and then she just added another phone number to the 13-year-old grandson who's possibly with the